be an indie means we buck a system that doesn't want us. To be a fringe filmmaker means we don't do it for them. We do it for ourselves. To be an outlaw on the fringe means we'll die before we fail. Be an outlaw.
George! I should probably get that off of there. Dude.
Season 4.
Season 4 already?
We take a little time off and you're fumbling with the graphics and you're all fumbles. Like, what the fuck?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You get it? You got it? You figure it.
Well, yeah, I was just doing that to bust your balls now.
I
missed you.
I missed you too. Did you have a good couple of weeks? Did you have a nice break? You ready for me to start busting your balls at like 4 a.m. again now?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, buddy. Man, life is good. How's life? How's your life? Is your life good? My life's okay.
My life is pretty decent, except that whole broken chair thing. Like I said, for those that you don't know, the hydraulic in my chair broke. So if you see me sinking, then I do apologize. I have to waiting on my chair on order.
I have officially requested I put in all the right forms so that if that should happen, we're hoping that Joe just commits to it and goes with the comedy of it. So, we'll see, though. We'll see.
So, Jack, what is this? Thought this was next week. Man, you need to pay attention. We got
back next week if that's better for Jack.
Yeah, right? Okay, so right. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's call it a night. Man, people showing up early. There's my beautiful wife, Rebecca. Lance, what's up? Lance Mortimer Wagner.
Scott.
Dino, how you doing, pal? Ron,
I saw Dino. They're flying.
Good to see you.
They're flying by too fast.
Resident Romero Pictures, Indie Brigade, Drone Jesus. Man, I'm glad to see everybody coming out tonight. It's nice to see everybody here for season 4. It's going to be a hell of a season.
I agree.
I have to say that group on that art has grown. What? Use your words.
Samantha, we're giving you another shot. You're on the spot right now. We're waiting patiently.
Mr. Frank Farrell, so happy you joined us tonight for season 4, episode 1. We got a hell of a couple shows tonight, huh?
Yeah, man. Hey, Libby.
Libby, what's up? Thank you for joining. Bo, nice to see you. Bo, I don't remember you commenting much before. If you're new to the Brigade, welcome, my friend. If you're not new to the Brigade, thanks for chiming in. And if you've chimed in before, my apologies for not noticing. So, all the shows.
Lee.
Samantha.
Oh, all the shows. Okay. Glad I wasn't doing this the whole time.
Man. You know what was cool? You know what I did during the break? I did a virtual panel for the San Diego Comic-Con.
So it was something like we did first with the...
Yeah.
I don't know, with the...
But look, it's San Diego Comic-Con, right? Like, it's the biggest Comic-Con on Earth, right?
All right, you got me on that one. All right, do tell.
So it was pretty cool. It was a heavy metal panel. It's called Forging the Future of Genre. Matt Mendy, the CEO of Heavy Metal, hosted it, and it was David Irwin, it was Dan Fogler, it was Brendan Columbus, and Dylan Sprouse and myself, and it was very cool. We had a really fun conversation, and it's I don't know when it's going to be available. I don't know what the deal is with the San Diego Comic-Con online Comic-Con. That's kind of like the thing that we did first when we did DEF CON 1.
Can I bring that up now?
Yeah, I think we did that back in March, right? I mean,
yeah, I believe it was March 28th and the 29th.
28th and 29th, 2020.
Yeah,
we had vendor tables, which are still active and always will be active through the Indie Brigade. So it's not a limited thing. If you have a vendor table there, we encourage you to continue to push people that way, to check your stuff out, post in there, keep it active, keep it going. I talk about it every chance I get in every interview, every bit of press that we get, we talk about it. Oh, here comes Samantha. The art you showed, all the shows, it has gotten crowded. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Oh, damn. I wanted to invite Sean on for a minute to show off what he was doing, and I totally forgot. Sean, if you're there, man, chime in. I'll send you a link and you can pop on for a second.
You know, I'd be surprised if Sean's not still sleeping. That guy sleeps less than I do. And
he drinks like coffee at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning when he hasn't slept in 20 hours plus. And
yeah, well, that's how you do it.
I guess
Heavy metal is life. Yeah, Lance, you're making me jealous with all your back issues and stuff that you're
right. Did you see that today?
He's cool as hell. He's been putting them up for a few days now, I think. Tim Melican actually just had a great meeting with Tim. What a great guy. It was lonely on you over on you. Yeah, you know, Tim, this is an issue. We're working on this. We're trying to figure it out. We speak the Facebook language, I think, better than most other social platforms at this point. And we are trying to figure out how to kind of boost our numbers across the other platforms. We're working on it.
You know how people can do that? Help us do that?
Yeah, by sharing and subscribing and all that other stuff. So head over there if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube. We're also going to give you a pretty good reason to subscribe to our newsletter over at romeropictures.com here this season. So, you know, look, it takes a while for things to get up and running. It takes a while for things to find their stride. And I think that we've done a pretty good job of that, especially considering the growth we've experienced since January. I think it was January 2nd we rebranded and all that stuff, right? It was the 2nd or the 3rd, right? We released everything. Brandon, good to see you. Joe, good to see you. Not you.
Why would I thank me? I mean, come on.
Oh, man. This is pretty cool. I love that the community is here. I love our community. You know, we've done a really good thing here. We've built something pretty special, and I think that we built something a little bit more special than we even thought it was going to be when we started out, right, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I actually talk with these folks online in between shows and everything, and we all get to know each other. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it really is.
And we get to rag on Lance.
I am actually, my Killer's Choice coffee mugs are dirty. But I am actually drinking Killer's Choice coffee out of my Romero Pictures Indie Brigade mug.
See, and I know it's hard to see, but there's the Killer's Choice coffee and the mug behind me.
Killer's Choice, if you guys don't know, is Dan Yeager and the Brigade's own C.W. Penny have started a coffee company, and they supply the jet fuel on which Romero Pictures Indie Brigade runs. So we thank them for that. It's a fine, fine cup of coffee. I am not saying that out of any sort of obligation. I am a coffee snob, and it is delicious. So if you haven't tried it yet, make sure you go try it. Let's see who else is here. A lot of people showing up. The good Shepis is not here. David Madison.
Thank God Shepis is not here.
David Madison is going to be tuning in at the end of tonight's episode. He's got a phenomenal show lined up tonight.
He does. Let me pull that card up. I can do that right.
Kind of. Stay tuned tonight for the end of the night with David Lee Madison. He has Michael Madison, the COO and co-founder of Indie Rights Movies, one of the largest aggregators of independent film in the industry. And he's got the beloved Scott Schwartz, who's a friend of the Brigade, coming on to talk with him tonight as well. So tune in, check it out. It's going to be a great show later. And we've got a phenomenal show tonight. Tonight is the COVID-19 the beginning of the COVID-19 response series with our own Mr. Michael Mandaville. For those of you who have been fans or followers or members, as we like to call you, of the Indie Brigade for a while now, you know that Michael Mandaville and I go way back. One of my dearest friends, probably literally the smartest person I've ever met. He is a DGA UPM. He is a line producer. He was a producer on all 3 of the Taken films. And he has forgotten more about budgeting and logistics and all basically the operations of a film at huge budget levels than we will ever learn. And we're lucky when he shares his knowledge with us. And he and I have been talking a lot about the newly released industry guidelines and rules and playbook, if you will, for how the industry is supposed to deal with the COVID-19 response. We are going to be talking about this from the standpoint of the rules and guidelines that are being put out and enforced for the large industry, right? Like the mainstream, if you will, the mainstream industry, the big budget stuff, the studio stuff. But we're doing that for a very good reason, because what we want to do is we want to be sort of the first people in the indie world to look at this stuff, look at these rules, look at these guidelines, and open up our conversation to everybody watching, um, and maybe come up with some good solutions and ideas that we can do in the indie world, in the low to no budget world. Because believe me, when you start hearing what we're going to be talking about, this shit is going to affect every one of you making a small, low to no budget film. And the ways that it's going to affect you are ridiculous. And just thinking about the ways that they're going to affect you is hopefully going to help you think about how you budget your films anyway. Because let's face it, the COVID stuff, it's not going to last forever. These rules and regulations are not going to last forever, but they're here to stay for a while. And if you know kind of if you kind of follow the train of thought on how this stuff will affect a production, I think that just even thinking about this, you guys are going to realize things about how to budget and how to think about spending money on your movies that you've never even thought of before. So you're in for a real sort of like informational smorgasbord, cornucopia, buffet of knowledge. What do you think, Joe? What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. I'm looking forward to it.
Itai, hey guys, good to see you both. What did I miss? Nothing, man. Pandemic. The world's on fire. According to the Mayans, actually, I think yesterday was the day the world was supposed to end.
Again.
David, Tiffany's here. Yes, Tiffany. I mean, it will affect the way we film motion pictures. Yes.
You got Dino.
Picture shows. Yeah, Dino. Good to see you, buddy. You getting any fights out there in LA lately? I saw your post.
I like watching his bike ride videos, man.
Yeah. Zombies can only be 6 feet away from their victims. Now I'm dead, Tiff. So good. And Sam, you're right. We do speak, Sam. So listen, I'm glad everybody's here. Let's just do a little housekeeping. For those of you who don't know, you want to bring up the network graphic there, the network ID?
Certainly. I can do that.
Those who don't know, we have added a couple of shows. I finally got around to redoing the network ID graphic. You are looking at the current state of Romero Pictures Heavy Metal Indie Brigade Network. Right in the middle, we've got the DEF CON 1 there. And that, like we said, was the very first online fan convention ever. With that, we've got BlameJoe because everything is that motherfucker's fault. Now, we're going to start top right and come, I guess, clockwise. That would be clockwise. So we've got the end of the night coming up later with your host, David Lee Madison. We've already talked about his show, and you got a lot of good stuff in store. Below that, we've got the Wagner Wiles with hosts Lance and Samantha Wagner. We all do speak Samantha. So tune in if you guys really want to hear some great talk. They just did a great crossover episode. It was the Impeller episode, and they crossed over with the drone cab. Right below the Wagner Wiles, we've got the Nasty Nation with Chuck Nasty. We've got some interesting stuff coming up with that. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and just let everybody know right now that the Nasty Nation is about to transition over to being a video podcast. So we're very excited about that. We're working diligently on that behind the scenes. We will be bringing that to you very soon. Bouncing around past the BlameJoe and the DEF CON 1, you see Drone Cab. We talked a little bit about the Drone Cab. If you don't know what the Drone Cab is and you're new to the Indie Brigade, check it out. Mr. Terry Gerald, one of the Southeast region's FAA experts on drones and technology and all the rules and regs of flying a drone and all the ins and outs of using them and all that stuff. He is our own Indie Brigade resident drone Jesus, and he teaches you everything you could possibly want to know about drones over at the Drone Cab for absolutely free. So if you ever wanted to think about how to potentially use a drone to up the production value of your films, tune in. This guy's dropping knowledge on a regular basis. I think he's about 20 episodes in now. So if you haven't started watching it, you got a lot of shit to catch up on. And if you have started watching it, then you know how good it is. So start telling everybody the fuck about it and telling everybody to subscribe to the fucking YouTube. To the left, we've got The Devil is Into Detail. That is a wonderful blog on creativity that's written by our own Ian Steyer, the creative madman behind all of the logos that you see before you, except the Heavy Metal logo. Ian and I worked very closely to rebrand Romero Pictures, rebrand the Indie Brigade, and to brand all of the shows on our network. Moving up above Ian, we've got Living the Scream with Tiffany.
Yeah, George, you got a heckler. You may want to read that.
I don't have any missed calls.
Maybe it's when you changed
your iPhone. Maybe I didn't know it was you.
Yeah, maybe when you changed phones. That's what I was going to say. You just got a new phone. So
yeah, it was kind of a nightmare a few days, Tiffany. So if you did call me,
so sorry.
Anyway, we've got Living the Scream coming up with that will be with Tiffany Shepard. That's going to be an amazing show. She and I have been working closely. I am looking forward to hearing from her. If in fact she did call me, and if not, then it's still Joe's fault. And then above that, we've got What Was I Thinking? Fragments from a Dirty Ashtray with Richard Grieco. For everybody who has been part of the Brigade for a while, been a member of the Brigade for a while, you know that Grieco is a dear friend of mine and a dear friend of the show. He is going to be coming to the Brigade with his own show, and you guys aren't going to want to miss it. So you've got to subscribe. All right, pull this down because here's another reason to fucking subscribe to the YouTube if you haven't figured it out yet. We're going to start making some content exclusive to YouTube. We are also going to be doing a new writers series in conjunction with heavy metal, and that's only going to be available on YouTube. There will be no Facebook for it. Period. End of story. There will be no Facebook for it. It will be YouTube only. So we are doing this because we need people to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need to give people a reason to want to be part of the YouTube community of the Indie Brigade. So please, if you have not subscribed yet, make sure you go over and subscribe and sign up for all the notifications and all that stuff so that you find out what's going on and when that's going to happen. That's pretty much it right now. The other quick housekeeping stuff. What do we want to talk about?
I don't know. You may want to hurry up. Mr. Mandaville's getting antsy. I can see him giving you that look. No, I'm kidding. He's down there, though.
No, he's about to kung fu my ass from California. He's going to beat me through the internet. Let's see. We've got amazing merch available at romeropictures.com/merch. Get all your good stuff there. We've got a special line of clothing designed also by Ian Steyer called Scare Tactical. Every sale of Scare Tactical merch, a portion of that sale goes directly toward the Veterans Compound, which there is more stuff coming soon. I am told I am only waiting on one more piece of paper from the IRS before I can officially have a designation and do all this other shit. So get ready because you're going to get tired of hearing about it once it goes and launches live like that. Scare Tactical, buy your shit. Outlaw loadouts for the indie artists. The stuff is cool as hell. You need to get some. And when you do, you're going to help us help some vets. So head over to romeropictures.com/merch. If our merch is not up your alley, if you don't like anything, go over to buymeacoffee.com/RP Indie Brigade. And, well, buy me a coffee because God knows we've already talked about coffee. And, you know, at the end of the day, even though Killer's Choice is our official coffee of Indie Brigade, they're going to start charging me because I'm telling you, I'm drinking them out of coffee already. So buy me a fucking coffee.
They're coming out with the Romero Coffee IV.
Is there anything else?
Not that I am aware of. Let me just look real fast. I believe that is it for now.
All right. Well, shall we bring Mr. Michael Mandaville? Well, first of all, you know what? Is there anything you want to talk? I want to talk about your feelings, Joe. Are you good? Are you happy? Is everything?
So without further ado, here is Michael Mandaville.
Michael, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's really fun watching and listening to your banter there. Let's talk about your feelings, Joe.
Do you like how I pretend to care about him?
I know. I think that's really well done. Well, I think that actually echoes to the adage of Hollywood itself. As soon as you can fake sincerity, you've got it all, right? I think that's the epitome of Hollywood and the whole acting business to some degree anyway, right?
Agreed. Man, it's good to see you. We talk so much on the phone, and it's, you know, I mean, they're not like little, hey buddy, how's it going? Let's check in later phone calls. And they're pretty in-depth conversations that we have, and it's always so good to see you when you come on, man. It's so
you and I have these ridiculous conversations. 17 minutes in, we're talking about like the electrons in the universe or some shit, and it's like, wait, we started off with hello, and now we're like way over, you know, something else we're investigating or something. I didn't know that, aliens. Oh, okay, I'll get back to you on that. And it's kind of ridiculous, but that's the way we roll, I think,
I'm kind of pretty sure that one of these days we're going to accidentally solve every problem in the universe.
We will. Except then we'll both forget. We'll go, I thought you wrote it down.
Always be recording.
Come on, Joe.
Damn it. I just found out for the first time that George doesn't really care.
It's a dramatic evening for Joe.
Oh, man. So, listen, this COVID shit, yeah?
It's fascinating to kind of get everybody's perspective, and something that really hasn't occurred for 100 years since the Spanish influenza, which was by far less in a world far less prone to world travel. You have to think, when you wanted to travel in 1920, well, you really had to get on a ship and go to Europe, a stamp stream, what do they call it, a tramp steamer of some sort, or a cargo ship. What's that?
Would you call me?
You know what I said. And nowadays, I mean, given the ability to fly, I think I went to Paris once, just on the cheap, and it's like, with between Airbnb and everything else, it's so accessible. So it's which also has to do with filmmaking. The fact that 20, 30 years ago, when I started working in the film business, I did a film with an associate in Malaysia, and called Keys to Freedom with Jane Seymour. And the only two places you can get a camera was in Asia was Japan or Hong Kong. And through Hong Kong, it was with a guy named Run Run Shaw, who did all the Bruce Lee movies, and you had to deal with triads and a whole host of things to film. You needed a Kodak-approved chemical laboratory to even get in such an exotic place. But now it's as easy as getting on a plane and going to any new location. So the coronavirus certainly has deeply affected everybody across the board in the world about large gatherings and dedicated crews. And it seems that what's interesting is that it is going to be equally perplexing to the indie as well as the studio to a great degree. If you're doing, and I'm just kind of thinking in a broad sense until you and I drill down into some specifics here, but if you are doing Pirates of the Caribbean 17 or whatever the number they're up to, you have 6 major locations, 300 people on the crew or more, maybe 800 on an extras day. Mm-hmm. You have several thousand, 5,000 vendors. So just, if you start to put together in your brain a little spreadsheet of, let's see the variables, and now you run that out, well, it almost becomes certain that you're going to get some kind of infected crew member. As compared to an indie, where I think if you are small enough, the advantage is if you're small and disciplined enough, that you can end short enough on your timeline. The studio film might have 6 months, 9 months of shooting, 10, whatever it is, plus a year of prep. Not the indie. So I think there's an advantage. And it's actually that thinking that I just put forth there is kind of borne out by a couple of people I've talked to in the industry, in insurance and the bond company. Mm-hmm. And the bond company reps that I spoke to said, yeah, they think indies will bloom because of the shortened time period required, which I think is good, because you actually get back to making human stories about real humans, not stuff that's so special effects driven that, to me, I have a certain dehumanizing aspect to me. I just know it's so unreal. I feel less connectivity, and that's just my point of view. But I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, but with the human factor. But I mean, it's interesting because your guys, your guy actually said the indies are going to bloom.
Yes, indies bloom.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's an exact term that he used.
Before we dive too deep, I want to kind of give people just a cursory overview of what you and I have talked about with regard to what we're going to try to set out to do here.
Okay.
So basically within the last few days, right? That's all of these things have just dropped in the last few days, correct? These rules and regulations.
Pretty much in the last week and a half tops.
Okay. So what Michael and I have been discussing is we're going to be talking a lot about how all of these new rules and regulations are going to affect films in three different aspects. So tonight we're going to talk mostly about production. Then next week we're going to talk more about sort of how it's all affecting the sales and distribution of films. And then the following week we're going to talk about the creative of films, and not only how all of this COVID response is affecting all of this stuff, but how larger budget films and how the larger industry is reacting to it. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to force a conversation where we come up with solutions for the Indie Brigade. We come up with solutions for the filmmakers who are making the small, low to no budget films and ways. And Michael you were just starting to get into that and touch on it, but I wanted to kind of like give just a cursory. That's what's coming. Tonight's production, next week is sales and distribution. And then we're going to wrap it up by talking about sort of the creative and how this is not only going to affect the creative, but in ways the creative can become more nimble in the face of this stuff. Would you say that that's pretty much a fair assessment of what you and I discussed?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's when you think of the creative part, I just read today that the French will now, and of course they're the French, so this is what they do. They will now allow kissing to take place in their movie production. So they don't disappoint. But this is a genuine concern, because I read articles about people saying, well, okay, we take out all the handshake scenes. Right. So we can't do that. Yeah. Any kind of, hugs. How do you
party extras have to be socially distant?
How do you achieve that? So long lens to get that blur, but not at the same time. How do you get in and out of a scene to achieve that kind of element? So absolutely, the creatives, a lot of discussions going on there. A lot of quick rewrites, I imagine, just to try and get ready.
Well, and I think that, once we kind of dive in, let's start with the production of it all, right?
So sure.
The very first thing that you said to me about this came after you read the Camera 600 guidelines and regulations for the COVID response. And one of the first things you said to me was that the way that they're proposing this, and you were on a Zoom call with like 500 people, and what they're proposing is that you've got, say, your camera crew comes in at 6 a.m. to build their cameras for the day, or they come in at 5 a.m. to build the cameras for the day. There's got to be somebody who goes on the truck and brings the lens case off, and the AC who's assembling the camera has to move 6 feet back while the case guy brings the case and cleans it, and then moves 6 feet away while the AC gets his lens, and then cleans the case, and then back 6 feet away so that tech can get the case and take it to camera 2 or put it back on the truck or whatever needs to happen. And I mean, I'm already just so unbelievably irritated as a director or a producer on set, just even talking about that little piece of things.
Yes.
I'm so pissed off about my fucking efficiency for the day already.
Yeah. Rightfully so, because that the details you just shared with one department handling, well, let's call it the early morning routine. Nothing hurried, nothing difficult, nothing broken, nothing like we're losing the sun moment. We're just talking the morning routine. And indeed, I'm looking right now, and you could the folks there can look up Local 600 recommendations for returning to work. Local 600 is the IOTC 600, Camera 600. So they cover the United States for every camera crew, including the still photographer. And they set out exactly something like that. In fact, when I look at it under key recommendations, I was trying to make a few notes here. Under key recommendations, they actually write down here The exact wording: assign only one member of the camera crew at a time to work on the truck, and always heed social distancing when riding in other vehicles. In other words, crew vans, stake beds, etc. So that means 2 people in a passenger van, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So how, if you have 100 people, how many rounders do you have to make to get set? There's one other aspect of it. Visible physical indicators should be placed on equipment trucks to mark 6 feet of distance by cones, duct tape, signage, etc. So,
but I mean, you're already talking about needing a crew person dedicated, at least one crew person dedicated to marking off social distancing.
I think you need at least, probably wind up needing 4 or 5 if you think about it, because you got at least probably 2 people at base camp watching the trailers, etc., etc. Then you've got 3 groups that they've designated, whether they call it Group 1, 2, or 3, and some have referred to it as Team A, B, and C, whatever it is. And the call I was on was the Directors Guild of America call. We went through a great many of these with a very well-known first assistant director named Joseph Reedy, done huge movies, etc. So, indeed, you would have, let's say, Group A, and that's the director, the director of photography, the actors, any others on the camera crew, probably the operator, anybody, the first AD, etc. Anybody in that close proximity, and they would be tested. I think, and obviously some of these guidelines are still being formed, but would be 3 times a week. Group 2 or B would be 2 times a week, and Group C or number 3 would be tested at least once a week. So just setting that up, and then the other, once the camera crew, you and I were talking about how, well, to stay on that track, I guess, you and I will get off talking about aliens, and Joe is going to have to rope us in here, but the idea is that if it is indeed that, and you have 2 or 3 cameras to build, well, how long is that going to take? So I think we came up with the idea to invoke some engagement from the audience there, also in our problem by problem discussion, was if you actually had plexi and you made with pop-up tents outside with the mag liners, then you could have little workstations where they'd be separated, and you could theoretically have people 2 first and second ACs building the cameras as, at least simultaneously, as compared to the truck, where it's just basically you have one. I guess you could, open the side doors and, have people get in on and off, but still, it's going to be one of those crossing paths moments.
But see, this is where the indie world, and this is where it gets really interesting to me, because here's where the indie filmmaker, we don't have 3 cameras.
No,
we don't have 50 people on the camera crew. Hell, we don't have 10 people on the camera crew.
No,
so, what, like, for the non-union indie stuff, with these rules in mind, I mean, the industry is coming in and they're shutting down these union things. There's been 3 movies shut down in this past week alone.
Yeah.
How much of this do you think these indie films need to worry about? And the reason I ask is because a lot of times when we go to sell our films, we've got to do things like worry about insurance.
Sure.
What's going to happen? And this is an interesting transition here, because we're talking about claims made against the film. And one of the things we discussed was that if a claim gets made against the film at the union level, it falls to the film to prove that the person did not get the COVID on that film, correct?
That's one thing that's been bantered about, indeed. I don't have 100% confirmation of that, but that that the employer, it would be, if you go to work, you would default to the employer, that it would automatically be the fault of the employer if someone caught COVID, and therefore it would be up to the employer to disprove that the employee did not catch it there.
Right. So now when we get into and next week, we'll talk.
And I'm not certain about that, but
well, right. But I mean, we'll go with kind of that's how it's leaning at this point. So
sure.
next week, when we talk more about the sales and distribution, there'll be more rules and regs, and there'll be some changes to all this stuff by then, I'm sure, because this seems to be a sort of an organic living document that everybody's putting out. So if we bounce back to production, this is why I think it's important for every indie to learn the stuff that we're talking about tonight, that Michael is here to talk about tonight. Because when it comes to sell your movie, comes time to sell your movie, if you don't do some of this or as much of this COVID response stuff as you possibly can, even though you may think, well, it's cool, my film is me and my 5 friends, or me and 10 friends, it could come down to it when you go to sell your film that this could bite you in the ass if you aren't careful with your production. So I kind of wanted to just skip ahead there for a minute and touch on that, because I wanted to circle back to why we're talking about production and why it's important, I think, for the indies to focus on this stuff and think about it. Because like Lauren says, more than ever, indie filmmakers have it made with all the new rules in effect. All SAG projects just went up in the cost department. Well, Lauren, you're absolutely right. But every single film project in the world went up, especially if it's a film project that you're getting money from investors for.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to be something we talk about. Greco's here. Greco says the unions are for the unions and no one else. It's a money-making scam. I fucking love you, Richard.
Well, I think there's a few interesting elements in some of the documents I've read that kind of reinforce at least the notion of that. I mean, one of the things actually in here is that which one is it? One is that they're going to have something. They want something called paid sick leave. So on the face of it, you go, well, if somebody gets sick, that makes sense. Is that covered by the union? Probably not. Will they deduct something from the payroll to make a pool of money like workers' comp? Or does workers' comp exclude it currently? So it's not covered from regarded as a work-related injury, but communicable disease. Therefore, it's not covered. So there, begs a lot of these questions. But when you say, it says here, people are sick or caring for others who are sick, they must have a paid sick leave option that allows them to stay at home without undermining their economic security and forcing them to make dangerous choices. Some of that, I'm not sure what exactly that means. But at the same time, how do you qualify? Is that person only sick with COVID, or are they sick with something else? Right. And how long is paid sick leave?
Right.
3 days, 5 days, 2 weeks,
a month.
A month?
Yeah.
Who's paying for that?
Yeah. Well, now you're getting into the vagaries of it, right? So, I mean, they're writing it in these vague terms.
Yeah.
All that's doing is that's opening it up so that, and this goes back to the point I was trying to make, which is, you guys, you need to fucking pay attention to this, because look, it's a great business. We love what we do. We do it because we love it, but there's shitty people out there. And if somebody's not happy on your movie and there's an opportunity for them to use some sort of loophole language and say, but I'm caring for my sick dog who has COVID-19 and now I need sick leave because I think I have it and I got it from whatever your movie or what, there's a million ways that people can loophole their way into costing you and your production money.
Yeah. It's just human behavior. People do that, and it's human behavior in any aspect of a business. And this is a business where you've got amazing workers that do more than required. You have ones that do what is required, and you've got some that just want to try and get through the day with the minimal amount of work. I think that's just, we've all experienced this in any kind of business. So I think it's exactly to your point that this is going to be problematic. And if I have to budget, and I'm not sure on this, as you said, vaguely worded document here, but if I have to budget for a paid sick leave option and I have to do 25 days of shooting, and again, it could be 20, it could be 15, somewhere in there, but whatever the number is on a low budget film, non-union or the first tier of a union, somewhere in there, let's say is the indie, which for the sake of discussion could be $300,000 to up to $5 million. And I know that's a very wide range, but that's probably where I think indies will bloom. And because somebody is, if you step back and look at it, the one thing covering the whole element of production is the insurance. And if you don't have the insurance, well, guess what? You're not also going to get excluded from a bond if you need that for your wouldn't get it for a $1 million movie, but 3, 4, 5, yes. So if that's excluded, that means that right now, what's the gentleman say, Brandon? Our insurance company is going to bond lower budget SAG projects if they can't fully comply with these new mandates. I would say no.
No.
One is that, Brandon, is that the insurance company is going to cover different things like commercial general liability, non-owned auto, prop sets, wardrobe, camera, etc., the traditional components. And then you actually have a bond company, which is a form of an insurance company, and they guarantee delivery of the film. So if you actually become a real, if there's a real problematic movie, and I've done this, where you go in and you get 1 or 2 takes and then move on. I'm not talking about the quality of the acting or the lighting. I'm saying I got to take so much film and fill up 95 minutes to deliver it regardless. End of story. That's the job of the bond company. It is not aesthetic appraisal of quality at all. It would be better, but you have very few, very narrow gauge to fulfill that obligation, right? So excluded on insurance, excluded on the bond. Now the insurance that I'm talking to people about was one that was unique, was based on what was called captive insurance, which has it's unusual, so I've been reading about it. But essentially, for a $2 million limit policy, it would cost you $200,000. Now, it limits to 2, and it could apply to the cast, or it could apply to civil authority. So if somebody declares, like a government, which is a wild card that you and I can't predict, you could actually have all these protocols lined up. You could get the right insurance. You could get an okay of the bond. And then there's a breakout 100 miles away, and the governor says, we're shutting everything down. And then that's over anyway.
In the whole state, I mean, it just becomes a blanket kind of thing at that point where the state.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the civil authority insurance.
Yes. So you can apply it to that, or you can apply it to your cast. But obviously for $200,000 on a, $3 million movie, and it's impossible on $1 million movie. I mean, that's $100,000. So, and that's aside from the fact that the original insurance, right, 2 insurance, the insurance and the bond insurance, but that would go up approximately 1.25 to 1.5% of the budget more. So it's in effect usually about 1.25 to 1.5% anyway. So in effect, it would be doubling.
Right.
So that's the other issues: the insurance, the bond, and the specialized COVID insurance. So you're welcome, Brandon. So those 3 components set the whole basis for, like, how do we even deal with it insurance-wise? And the point was, if somebody says, I'm going to invest $1 million, $3 million, or 5, or 50, or 100 million, then I need to, basically, I'm taking a greater risk, and therefore I should have a greater return. I mean, that's just supply and demand. If I have a chance to lose all my money now because I can't even finish the project because of this, a real possibility at this given moment, then I'd want a greater return. I don't want 50% of the movie. I'm going to, if you want to put up your house and throw in, okay, let's do it together. But I mean, it becomes a thing where right now, why would you invest when you're like 6 tiers down from a theatrical film? Like, a friend of mine has a prints and advertising fund. It's like $100 million. He has had such a time trying to find a fitting project that is broad enough to justify investment in P&A and to get the theatrical sensibility just right when it's usually crowded with Avenger and comic book movies for the most part. But now there are no theatrical revenues. So it's basically you're making everything right now for a streaming target for a period of time. That's it. So, and there's a limited number of those that'll buy unless you go to a distributor and can sell territory by territory. So, I mean, on the basis of that, I just wanted to lay a little groundwork. You have the insurance issue, and then the other is that you've got unions, and you may deal only with SAG, or you might deal with the IA or the Teamsters and SAG, and that's about it. Let's say.
I think for a lot of the brigade, they're going to be mostly dealing with SAG is going to be the one. Because,
SAG and non-union.
Right.
Yeah.
So, however, that doesn't mean that you're immune to this stuff. It doesn't mean that you can ignore some of what's happening, especially with SAG, because when it comes to SAG, you're dealing with the face of your movie. And let's face it, I was talking to Richard today, and, he made a point because one of the films that got, we were talking about one of the films that got shut down. He made a point that there's some films getting ready to start shooting here in the next couple of months. And, let's face it, there's nothing going on. There's nothing shooting. So SAG has nothing to do except pay attention to everybody who is shooting.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's 1,000 movies being shot, but there's maybe 10. So, everybody's got to keep their jobs. So SAG is going to be, they're going to be on your ass, which means if you're going to be using SAG actors, you have got to pay attention to this stuff for the production, because the last thing you need is for your talent to get sick with COVID. And then not only, it becomes even more in the public spotlight because it becomes a case of public interest about your talent, getting COVID on your film. So, I'm just.
No, I think that's very valid because right now, I mean, you just consider the script anybody is writing. So you can't get near somebody to whisper a secret, or you're going to have to figure out some way to shoot one side. And then a friend of mine said you get another dummy and you dress it up in a wig next to it. So when you actually have that over-the-shoulder shot, you can get that proximity. And I'm like, okay, so is that literally one way? It's one way to actually come up with a solution. And the funny part is you could have that, on some kind of rollers to where it moves back and forth. You dress it, and I guess you get your over-the-shoulder shots. And there you go. I mean, that's actually some more indie thinking, but it's exactly that kind of protocol that everybody's trying to figure out, or methodology or technique, I should say, rather than protocol,
Well, that's an interesting approach. I mean, you're talking about a poor man's process trailer for over-the-shoulder actor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're getting an over-the-shoulder shot and you can't get the actor close, they have to be within 4 feet. And, you can't do certain kinds of movies that might be claustrophobic by any stretch, like on a submarine. Submarine movies are always, close proximity, or warfare, right? That sort of thing.
Stuff is so ridiculous, Michael. Like yeah, I keep laughing. I'm not laughing at, obviously it's so silly. Like, what the hell is the response? What do we do? Like, what do we do as indies? What do we, like, what if we do as filmmakers? Itai put a comment up here a second ago, and I just saw, there it is. Unfortunately, the only solution we have for this right now is to postpone production until the whole thing blows over and the laws tighten up. I feel like that's a little bit of a bleaker side of it, Itai. Yes, that's one way to go, absolutely. But then he had another comment, which I absolutely agree with. We don't have the option of leaving ourselves exposed under the current state. It sucks, but I'm moving away to creating other content where I'm not left open to such. And the second part of that comment is exactly what we're going to get to at some point in this series as well. But it's not something that it's the business, right? It's an industry. You can't just wait until, like, you can't just walk away. Like, this is in our blood. This is what we do.
Well, human beings are amazingly creative and adaptive throughout history. I mean, you can see that if you sit back and study. And some of the things people, I mean, that came up with, and you read. Actually, one thing one can do is read when were things invented, and like canned goods were invented in 1830 something, right? And you read about, like, wow, that seems awful early to me, but I don't have a perspective on it when I read that. So humans can be extraordinarily, and if you think about aspirin, somebody scraped bark off a tree, boiled it, and they said, well, if you take this powder, it's going to, take away your pain. Yet I think up until 20 years ago, they actually didn't know how it worked on the human body.
Right.
So there's brainstorming into the gentleman whose comment we just saw right now. So maybe you have a script that I think if I was an Indian, I've done this where I wrote a script called Into the Flames, and I was going to shoot it and get money for it. And then I said, oh, the hell with it. I'm just going to shoot it at my house. It was adaptable to my house. And that's what I did. And I shot it in 8 days for virtually very little money. And it's now in the Cannes Film Festival catalog. So I want to give some hope to people out there when you just say, people say, I've got this project. It's the only one I ever make. Well, I think you should write another one that suits the circumstances here. So if I were doing that, I would say, okay. And depending on where I live, you might have some beautiful vistas where somebody has to, making up a story here, someone's daughter is taken by two guys escaping, and the father, no cell phone range, and he's going to go after them anyway. Mm-hmm. So is that a movie that interests someone who wants to do that kind of movie? You can have somebody who... So, I mean, there's so many stories that we have in us that actually make the thematic point. And right now, indeed, the gentleman whose comment did come up, indeed, it does seem kind of dire, but people in the film industry seem to be the most adaptive. They'll just say, oh, I lost my job, man. I got to go get another. That's what I'll do. I got a side hustle. I have to adapt. I have to make, the gentleman even said, I got to make other content now while this is not going on. Well, there you go. You have an adaptability mentality. That's so right. I think when you reverse engineer the process, and I think that when indies bloom is because never has there been a time like when I did that movie in Malaysia, it was with a Panavision film camera, best in the world, $500,000 for the camera, plus the lenses and everything else. Absolutely. Now, of course, I shot the first feature, low budget feature I did. I shot on a $2,500 camera because the sensor was so good, I could shoot at night and still get what I needed. Mm-hmm. And I just bought it for the sensor, and I got some glass. But when it was getting a bit grainy, as it were, at night because the sensor was pushing certain things, I actually had the story turned it to where that footage is something people are remembering. So our memories are fuzzy. So the footage that's a little bit like that works for their remembering in the film.
Exactly.
So, when you think of these solutions and this, I think that there's ways to do it. And I do think the indies are actually going to have an advantage because guess what? If you say, and I think the biggest issue is, let's say the insurance issue, of course, because if you're not covered by COVID or a specific policy, and you have a workers' comp policy, and let's say it's a $500,000 movie, okay? So I'm going to pay people. I'll have a workers' comp policy. The question is that workers' comp policy cover COVID or not? I'll say no. Now, there is probably going to be a way where people eventually will be able to get some kind of COVID insurance. And I think something I wanted to talk to you about might be kind of a collective. where depending on what people do, you can lay off some of the risk by getting a larger policy with subordinated amounts. So that might be one way to go. And if so, I think that there's going to be distinct advantage because, it might be a cameraman, an operator, and a first, and that's it. So they can actually function in relation to keeping social distances, because guess what? They may not even have a truck. They may have, a van that they're already driving, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I think that there's distinct advantages. And also, is somebody willing to love a story to take advantage, take a roll of dice on $500,000? Or are they going to take a roll of dice on 50 million? I think especially in this environment right now, given this moment, because the film I did was, I think it turned out good. Is it great? No, if I want to be honest with you, it turned out I enjoyed it. I had a great process. I think there's great moments. I had fun writing it. The performers did terrific. Would I like to have had a few more days of shooting and more than a few people in the crew to get different moves and more, some more material for editing? Yes. Didn't have it.
Right. But you grew as an artist.
Oh, yeah.
And you got a finished product, and now it's in the catalog.
Yeah. So
I want to back up here real quick because Itai then popped on and said that's exactly his point, Michael. We're now thinking of script ideas that we can actually make under the current circumstances. And that's exactly what Michael's talking about, Itai. And that's exactly why the indie community is going to bloom based on what Michael's contact said, because, we're in a situation where we said a long time ago on this show that the industry at large is one of the biggest movable beasts on the planet, and you cannot spin it up. It doesn't just spin up. You don't say, okay, we're going to shut it down because of a pandemic. And then you don't look at the entire large budget studio film industry and say, okay, we're going to start making movies again on Thursday. And everybody goes, okay, great. We're back up and running. You're talking about billions of dollars at large. You're talking about millions of people at large. And that's not something that's going to spin up easily. And it's not something that's going to spin up without a bunch of bureaucratic red tape. And it's not something that's going to spin up in any way, shape, or form that's going to be comfortable for people who work primarily in that. So, that the studios are going to they're going to have no choice but to come to our world. And on the next show, we'll talk more about kind of how we can maybe protect ourselves a little bit when they come in and say, hey, we're going to come into the indie world and just scoop up all the indie movies that have been made for no money. That's another conversation for another time, but they are going to come to us. And the question is, are we as indies going to be ready when they call, right? When Warner Brothers calls you up, Lauren, and says, hey, listen, we're spinning up the industry again, but we can't spin it up on our level. We want to throw you $250,000 to make a movie because we know you can spin up a $250,000 movie in 30 days. Are you going to be ready to deliver something to them that they're going to look at and not say, great, thanks for doing all the work. We're going to take your footage and we're going to studio it up and we're going to put it in our post thing. There's an opportunity coming for indies that if we can kind of be prepared for the studio system to kind of swoop in and realize that the indie world is a talent pool and a resource for them through this. Exactly, Lauren, ready now. Exactly. Michael, you and I have talked about this a lot. You give anybody in the brigade $250,000 to make a movie, and they're going to be shooting in 30 days.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all, the limit, the money itself has inherent limitations to some degree. And if someone's smart about it, there's only a certain amount where you can push the limit and then the quality drops so that you stay within what would be those certain parameters that make sense. If you're working 20 hours a day, eventually you're just going to collapse. So you have to pace yourself. I mean, there's a number of things that I think are very important in that regard. And I do think what's interesting is that the studios that actually initially they made a big, what were all the Paranormal Activity made for $15,000 or 20 or whatever, and so there's precedent for them opening up and now looking for those kind of completed projects, ones that can be put out in whatever way. And so I think that there's an established avenue to see how they could do it. I think the question is, and they had many of those when the indie world started up. They all opened up Fox 2000, Fox, what was it? Fox Focus, and then there was Fox Faith, but then there's, Paramount had one division, so the classics division or whatever it was, all these specialty divisions. So there you go, Lance.
Brandon Brooks is bringing up a lot of good points tonight. I'd like to go back. He just brought up this one. There was another one earlier, actually, Joe. The one before that, it's going to be a leap of faith, no matter. Here we go. No matter if even all these protocols are followed, because there's still going to be fight and kissing scenes and other types that require contact without the project looking awkward and possibly hurt the overall story. Everyone has to be very clean and do the best they can if they're going to film. If not, then they shouldn't film right now. Well, you're absolutely right, but I mean, content has to get made, right? I mean, just like anything else, there's going to come a time that if it doesn't get spun up on some level, there's not going to be any content left. There's not going to be new TV shows. There's not going to be new movie releases. There's not going to be, except for, to move on to your next comment, so many indie filmmakers are already making COVID time no distance projects, so there's going to be an overflow of these no distance films that's going to get old quick with weeding out the good ones. Same with COVID based films that are getting made. They're going to get no love quick from distributors. We got to think outside the box, but not just at distance Zoom films or others like it. Exactly right. I mean, and that's, I think, what we're getting at, and then there's another point that was made by where did it go? Hang on a second here. I saw it a second. Oh, Tim Milliken said it. And it was about why not just require testing everyone on set.
Well, that's exactly one thing that they proposed, at least like 3 tests a week. One example that came out was on the Directors Guild of America call was that you would test the extras before you brought them in. So let's say you had 100 extras that were coming in for a picnic scene or something, movie night in the park. That sounds like you could socially distance and still do something there.
Right. You kill everybody at the movie night.
That's right. But you'd have to bring them all in according to this protocol and test them all the day before. So you have these 100 people that would come in, and let's say each person, I assume, could test probably 40 with a temperature or some other kind of test, maybe 30. Let's say 30. So you need at least 3 technicians that you pay for. Then you have to pay for the 100 tests. Then the tests have to be finished before, according to the present rules, 10 o'clock. So you start notifying people by 8. So you see what time you got to call them in if you back it up. If it's 2 hours to do that, start the testing right away, and then send them off, get the results that day. Because if anybody tests positive, then you got to let them know, and then you have to cancel them and get somebody new. So you could see now, do you pay them, according to the Screen Actors Guild, do you pay them for a fitting, or do you pay them for a full 8 hours of the minimum on the day? That's if you're in a union jurisdiction. Like in Pittsburgh, they could use non-union extras. So in other parts of the country, it would be SAG jurisdiction. But it begs the question, so if I pay them 4 or 8 hours, I'm doubling my budget in that one line item alone, and possibly a little more given the technicians and the tests. I don't know how much test costs if you could get it to the point where it could turn around that quick. Would it be $20 a test? If so, that's $2,000 or $10. And there's numerous tests. I was reading all about the different kinds of tests. So you pay for a more definitive test because your insurance company demands it, the $30 test or the $50 test. So, you might say, well, we'll just have to do the scene with 20 extras or 30. I mean, but what is the scene? So,
but you still have to then pay the extras that were sick.
Yeah.
You had to cut.
Yeah.
And depending on how long of a turnaround you had by the time you had to cancel them, you may have to pay them their full day or whatever the contract says,
Should be up till 10, but you can cancel. But I think, where, when, what, number of questions there. But So now, when I talked to somebody, a friend of mine, exchanged emails with them yesterday, and they are in France. They've done a number of Luc Besson films over in France. They started up production, although their protocols are very stringent. They did start up some productions, but she estimated that there's just going to be no more money, but that they are going to add about 20% of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And already, I have to think, if I'm doing a film, and I picked $10 million arbitrarily, but if someone's doing a film for $10 million and you have no theatrical right now, I think you're in a serious trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might get some streamers to buy it as an event movie of some sort, maybe 20 million. I don't know what the number is there for the accrual of eyeballs that justifies it with new subscriptions. But at $10 a month, let's just say you need to get 1 million people to sign up to justify your $10 million movie, or probably for 3 months. So you need 300,000 people over 3 months that stick with it to justify that one movie. Right. But the problem is simply going to be when if that's not your arrangement, and you're actually going by territories, you're going to have 20% more cost minimum, and that 20% or 15% is often where a movie lives to even get made. That difference.
Right.
So between the territorial pre-sales, minimum guarantee of some type, some kind of equity investment, etc., that there was a movie I was working on. It was Russell Crowe was attached. It was set in Pittsburgh, and literally the movie cost was $14.2. The movie had to be made for $13.5, and so for $700,000, the movie didn't get made. So I mean, that's how close everything is in these arenas.
And we're not talking about budgets like that in our indie.
No, I know.
We're talking about, let's talk about 1.5 and below, because one of the things you and I talked about is, so say you're making an Avengers movie and it costs $300 million. Well, it costs $5 million in your COVID response. The difference between $300 million and $305 million is negligible. It's nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
But if you're making a movie for $500,000, or if you're making a movie for $250,000, and now your COVID response is going to cost you an additional $250,000, well, that can be potentially catastrophic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this goes to Brandon's point, and what Itai was saying is that we've got to think outside the box. We've got to make other projects, because let's just talk production a little bit more. So, I mean, literally, if you go to make a movie, and it's kind of impossible for us. I was hoping we were just going to be able to save all the creative points for the end, but it's so I'm realizing as we're talking about this that it's still going to take us a while to get through all of this in a few episodes, but it's all interconnected. So there's no way there's no way for us to kind of delineate stuff.
Yeah,
but if you think about the production of it all, and you've got a catering budget, and say you're making a movie for $100 grand, say you're making a movie for $150,000, and you've got a casting crew of
35.
Okay, 35 people.
How much?
I've got to feed those people.
How much is the budget?
$150 grand.
Oh, 150 grand. No, we'll have a crew and cast of, I would tend to start to say 15 to 20, 15, 20, somewhere in there.
Okay, let's go with 20. Let's keep
Yeah.
it around. Okay.
Yeah. 5 cast,
grand,
15 in the crew.
150 grand. Yeah. Okay. 5 cast, 15 in the crew. Let's just talk catering for a second.
Sure.
You got to feed 20 people twice a day, unless you have to go into second meal. Now, how even just catering is going to cost you. It used to be that we would do, have the pizza day or the pasta bar day or the whatever. It's going to cost you 2 to 3 times the amount of money in utensils. It's going to cost you 2 to 3 times the amount of money in plates and utensils and food and heating and places and tents and chairs and social distancing methods and all of this other stuff. It's your budgeting, your catering budget alone is going to double. Makeup, you can't use the same brushes twice, right? This is one of the things they're saying. Makeup artists can't use the same brushes twice, and the makeup chair is going to be one of the most highly contagious areas on a film set, right? Because you've got the makeup artist in your face, and then somebody sneezes, and then somebody coughs, and then everybody is dying, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, just to focus on just this production stuff, like, how at $150,000 budget level and a 20-person crew, how do you keep the most amount of money on the screen? Because in my mind, when I think about $150,000 to make a movie in COVID time, I think, well, shit, before COVID, 150 grand, I would have gotten at least 100 of that on screen. Now you say, here's 150 grand in the middle of COVID. And I think to myself, Jesus, I'll be lucky to get 25 grand of it on the fucking screen.
I think that indeed, and I mean, the bottom line right now, aside from even the protocols and the procedures that will be new to any film media production at all, is indeed the insurance question. I mean, that's the overarching question at all. There's films that don't get bonded, and they go, well, it's $1 million, $1.2 million. Even the bond company will say, it is not worth the paperwork for us. Why don't you just put the $35,000 in the movie? They'll readily say that anyway. Bonding a low-budget movie is not worth it for their money, time, and profitability for the most part.
Agreed.
But insurance itself, just if somebody breaks an arm, commercial general liability, the idea is that somebody's going to sign a waiver is one thing that has been some degree of conjecture about. The unions adamantly oppose any kind of waiver to get any kind of work, of course. So indeed, non-union may, have a better go at it. If there is the possibility of someone saying, and I think there's a mindset, like I was talking to somebody about making a low-budget movie, and I said, what we're going to do is maybe we'll wind up going to Romania or Hungary and isolating at a hotel and building the set in the parking lot of the hotel and taking it over and literally going, okay, once we're 6 weeks, 3.5 weeks of shooting or whatever it was, for, something like that. But the point is, though, is now we're having to self-isolate. And I think that's the similar process you'll have to do for an indie to comply with any insurance at all, if you can get it. I think that on the food issue, if you're going back to the couple things you brought up, if you have 5 cast, indeed, you're going to have a lab. Each lab will be washed each time. Then you lab up the actor, and the 5 actors you have, or 8, whatever it is, ultimately, are going to have that distinct lab throughout the show.
Sure.
If you're actually doing the food, catering on $150,000 or $500,000 becomes a bit dicey. And I think because you just go, well, do you want us to get propane and then ice and then tables and chairs and the setup and blah, 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 blah. So now it's certainly a lot easier to actually say, well, we're going to go to either pre-order meals, so they're delivered by box, where you get a pre-order, and it could be next door, and then here's the Elks Lodge, and you rent the Elks Lodge to go eat there. You actually have the advantage, and this is one I haven't been able to figure out. When you're eating lunch, you have to maintain a 6-foot distance, right?
Right.
So let's have 300 people eating lunch. That's like literally a football field. I was trying to think through the math on that, but that would literally be a room the size of a football field.
Yeah.
So you have to stagger those lunches, but advantage. It's almost like I want to do this, Cameron. I want to go advantage studio, advantage indie, advantage indie.
Yeah, I know, right? Because look, I'll tell you, one of the best solutions I ever used for feeding a large amount of people was I went to one of these military surplus stores and I got an old mess tent, an old military.
There it is. Yeah.
And they were those things are massive if you've never seen one.
They're huge.
And in a situation like with the COVID response, you can put the flaps on the side up. You can circulate air or not circulate air, whatever they say will or won't spread COVID. I mean, you can isolate people. You can do, you've got a couple of those, and you've got enough. And I think I got my tent for like $120.
Yeah.
When I did it, and it was a used military test tent.
You actually hit on something very interesting, because if you look at the two worst places for soldiers to be in the Spanish influenza, and was in a barracks or in a ship, and the ship was so crowded, and you had portholes but very, very little airflow. Those seem to be at least from what I'd read. And in 1918 to 1920, I looked at it and I went, God, that seems terrible that they put all these people just in tents outside. Why aren't they in a hospital being cared for a little better? And the answer was, I actually didn't find it out until recently, this last couple months, that having people put in tents and having the air flaps open, or being in a hospital, even in winter, having the windows open with fresh air, helped fight the Spanish influenza. And number two, when they were outside in a tent, you could take them out of the tent and move their bed into the sun, and the vitamin D, as well as the fresh air, was effectively combating the Spanish influenza. And I didn't know that. So you're actually on a good mark on that. I have to say that kind of thinking is going to be more suitable than people closed in. So yeah. I think there's an advantage.
Indie.
Yeah, that's right. Indie advantage. I mean, we're also used to having food where somebody says, if you have small heaters or whatever to keep the food warm, well, even if it's a ordered meal, people, at least they know up front what it is. There you go. So I think there's distinct advantages. Also, indie crews would be more, I think, open to saying, well, sure, okay, we'll release those guys, stagger the lunches a little better or something. Maybe that's a point. And just simply the, fewer people and their guidelines in the Camera 600, they actually mention something here. Our shared goal, number 5 under principles, must be to get as many people back to work as possible. Arbitrary limiting the size of crews and attempting to combine jobs leads to inefficient, unsafe work practices and harms workers financially, which some of that you could read into going, well, they're not going to allow any kind of flexibility in minimum staffing. So from a union point of view on 695, where you have the sound mixers and boom and the cable persons, the cable person can be useful if the sound cart and the actors are 50, 80 feet away to, wrangle a cable, make sure it's not getting messed up in some way. But if you're within 6 feet, why is that person even on the set? Literally, if that's your whole day, right? But they insist on that minimum staffing. So I think, to have some kind of, I think it's arbitrary that they're kind of on the set anyway. But as I read the document, it's that they want to get as many people back to work as possible. So,
and I understand that that's the goal. And again, that's the goal of the.
Everybody would like to get as many people back to work as possible.
Yeah, but that's the goal of the behemoth, right?
Yes.
That's the goal of the movable beast.
Yeah.
So okay, so we're coming up toward the end here, but I want to take a few minutes. We've got a couple of other questions, but I want to take a few minutes and I want to ask you this.
Sure.
If I came to you as your friend and indie filmmaker and I said, Michael, I have $200,000 to make a movie. I got my $200,000 from an investor who gave it to me, and it was a little bit expensive because of the COVID, and I'm okay with that because at least I get to make a movie. And here's the movie I'm going to make, and it is the story of two hitmen on a Sunday walk through Runyon Canyon.
Okay.
Right.
Sure. Happens all the time.
Right. So what? Tell me, I've got a 2-person cast. It's a dialogue heavy film. It's going to run maybe 85 minutes, maybe 85 minutes. Tell me the essential, the bare minimum. What would you say to me? Listen, Cameron, if you're going to go out and you're going to do this movie and you're going to do it like this, this is the absolute best use of $200,000. This is the absolute what you need.
Sure.
And everything else you don't have to worry about.
Well, I like the premise because what one thing is I always start with the emotional cues of the movie. What's needed to make the movie and make it a good movie? Now, I would ask you, and I go, okay, they're two hitmen. They don't like each other. They don't trust each other. Within 6 feet, they can kill each other.
Right.
So you actually have this interesting animus to work from and work into the script going, who's going to get in the car first? You know? Okay, you sit in the back, but on the right. You know? I want you behind me, man, with that piano wire, right?
Right.
So I would say if that's part of the requirement, make it part of the script. So it's kind of adjusting the emotional content to work for you.
Right.
And so there's not that awkward, let me give you a hand up as they're going up Runyon Canyon. It's like, I get back, I'll do it on my own.
Yeah.
So now we actually have established kind of the emotional cues. I would say to keep it minimum, I would have like a camera crew-wise, I'd have someone who would be a first AD to hustle everybody so they could be the main person. I would see if I could get a second because they're always good to lend a hand. Probably a PA just to wrangle them, run up and down Runyon Canyon when somebody forgets something. I would, it's not going to be me.
Or me.
Or yeah. I would have a DP who is also the operator. So we can actually talk to somebody about lighting and lensing all at the same time there. A first, possibly a second, because you could actually, if you have 2 cameras you're carrying, maybe you lose the first to actually go operate. So depending on where on the canyon you are, you might have them go up the road like 50 feet and set the camera wide so we get the vista of LA in the background. And then we have them, flawless editing because you're cutting with 2 cameras, if it works for the film, obviously. But so now you have this moment of flawless editing, which is because with 2 cameras, it's just going to work. So I would have that with a first AC. I'd have a sound mixer, but somebody who can actually carry a deck around and be pretty good about it. It's probably good to have somebody to help with the labs with a sound mixer. Otherwise, you're just waiting on them. Mm-hmm. So it could be someone who could be or doing a boom if you want to get another feed. So I'd have a 2-man sound crew. And then I'd have somebody obviously doing, if possible, costumes, but those would be set, and you'd have somebody walking it up, and then makeup. And that's what I would probably go with right there.
So how many is that? What is that, 10? Plus outside the cast, outside the 2 casts. So was that 10 you just rattled off?
7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. And the other The only other addition that would be very good to have for planning would be a script super.
Right.
Someone to keep your brain together to go, wait, did I shoot that or this? And it doesn't default to, you know, when I was doing Into the Flames, I would have killed for a script super.
Oh my God. Yeah. But you know what? I've had some of the most heated arguments with my scripties.
Oh,
you know, over like, because you swear to God you're on the axis.
Yeah.
And your supervisor comes over and says, no, that's not the axis you were on. And you're like, no, it fucking is. And I want my shot. And, you know, stuff like that. But you're right. You absolutely need one. And the script supervisor, most 9 times out of 10 is always right. So,
and they do, you know, and there's ways for editorial. If you kick it to editorial at night, you might have ideas going, cut this to this to this, make a note. Sure. And then you can get through your editorial quicker and shorten the post process. But right here, I mean, you know, there might be an intern that would be your assistant for something that would be learning. That might be helpful. But by and large,
so 11 people plus your 2 cast members. So yeah. 13 people to make a movie with 2 actors. And now you've got to socially distance those 13 people. And you've got to feed them. And you've got to transport them.
Yeah.
And you have $150,000 to do this.
Well, if you're at Rustic Canyon, Runyon Canyon, or wherever you're going to be, I mean, the biggest question on any kind of social distancing when I look at something as like this is the DP in the first. Yeah. You can't do any follow focus.
Right.
I mean, well, you could do it remotely if you get a rig. So I guess they could stand 6 feet off and do it. But if you are talking to the DP and you ask the first, and you go set up the camera there, then you can't operate it because you got to clean it.
Mm-hmm.
So how quickly and in what ways are you cleaning everything? So that's a question. And then when somebody handles the labs, you got to have gloves to take the lab, to fix it, tighten this, you know, the various dials or whatever you're going to work with on that, just to make sure, you know, we got a little rattle or something.
So now you have to have a glove budget.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be a given,
right? You got to.
That's the cheapest of the thing I found in so many of these questions.
You got to have a PPE budget.
Oh, absolutely.
You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you have to absolutely. I mean, they make it clear in every single hand sanitizer, workstations, et cetera, et cetera. I just came from a friend's movie ranch a couple days ago up at Blue Cloud. He manages the ranch, and they built it's an amazing ranch, actually, I think. And they have a full Iraqi village. They shot American Sniper there, at least part of it. Afghani village, a cave, a really cool cave now. They've got a forward operating base. I mean, this thing's dialed in now. And they shot 68 Whiskey there, as well as SEAL Team.
Okay.
And so, but, you know, he was just talking about like, well, you know, I have to make sure all the bathrooms now are hands-free, under the soap dispenser, under the sink, under, you know, towels. I mean, the doors are the biggest issue. How do you open a door, kind of thing? Handless, you know. So, but that's going to be part of the ongoing requirements. He goes, I don't know how they're going to actually shoot much, but. And
okay, so $150,000, 13 people out there in the middle of Runyon Canyon.
Now, I would take one thing I would do is if all of it's at Runyon Canyon, you got a continuity issue because what's the weather like when you're shooting? Was it cloudy one day or is it sunny the next? And now you're, you know, so do you shoot wide when it's sunny, and then do you start to shoot small when it's overcast so you could shoot against the mountain or the bushes so that you don't have continuity issues?
Yes, absolutely. But now let me ask you this ballpark question, and then Brandon has another question. But how much of that 150 ends up on your screen?
Well, aside from the if you've solved the coronavirus insurance issue to whatever degree, is that a given that's been at least insured, or what?
Yes, it's a given that the film is insured because I'm assuming that it's going to be shot on a camera system that most indies can't afford to own. which means if you're going to rent a Alexa or a Red, most places will require you to have some insurance. So yes, there has to be some insurance. And now because you have to get insurance, that has to include insurance that will get you through the COVID stuff. So
we have workers' comp covering it, and we have a secondary policy. So we're covering that in some form or fashion. I think you might I would tend to think you're going to have $100,000 for the production and the prep. And then what you're going to want to do is probably spend 25 on insurance and workers' comp policies. And then you have another 25 for editorial and finishing everything up. It's going to come under the SAG Ultra. I think they just raised those limits, but it should come under one of those agreements. The other part is if all of it at Runyon Canyon?
Yes. This is all one location.
Okay. So do they get out of the car to go up there?
Well, you know what? Let's say there is no car.
Okay.
It opens up and they're already walking.
Okay. So if that's the case, I mean, I would just tend to think if there's anything I would tend to do might be, are there smaller shots that you can get? Now it becomes to me, it became when I did Into the Flames, but it works on the same movie, is what are the days that I can make tracks on? Like they're sitting and talking. Mm-hmm. The guy twisted his ankle. He goes, wait, you've been shot 72 times, yet you're whining about your ankle? That moment.
Yeah.
So how many of those little isolated shots that they're not just walking, but they are having these moments together? Maybe and again, we don't know the plot, but there are actually two guys trying to be friends that aren't, and they're waiting for the mark to show up to see who kills them first to get the money. But somehow they have to have some kind of cooperation or whatever. Their ultimate boss will get angry at both of them. So they're bargaining over they're going to split it. Well, now you get this kind of thing where they could be together, they could be isolated. So the one thing about this kind of shot of film is that you can't actually shoot for scenes. You can't schedule scenes. You have to schedule shots.
Yes.
And that's the killer thing that people start to think. They go, well, we're in the house, we'll go get that. And then pretty soon you're in the house and people look at you and the director and they're going, all right, boss, what's the plan? And then it becomes a clusterfuck and you are completely like, everybody goes, oh, we just lost faith in the Grand General here. So you have to have it detailed down to shots.
Yes.
And that's the only way you're going to make this kind of a schedule, I think.
Yes.
So when you're wide and you want to get shots where people aren't in, that's making sure you know the trail, and also just as a point of reference, you might reverse it so that you're actually walking down. If the film is about them walking up to some degree or down, whatever it is, I would tend to pick down because it's going to be a lot easier on everybody and you'll get more work done.
Yeah.
So, you start to think those things through, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you get them doing that and it doesn't affect the plot, then that's great. I mean, you got everybody like descending to the hill where you pick them up.
Right. Okay.
So
now I was hoping you were going to get into talking about scheduling and thinking about shots as opposed to scenes because
you have to do that. Yeah.
You and I, that's a whole conversation in itself.
Yeah.
I have a question here.
Sure.
From Brandon. That's a really good question. And I think we'll wrap up on this. Can Airbnb still work for more than one cast or crew member if clean daily, or will hotels have to, that have around the clock cleaners have to be budgeted for all out of town key casting crew? That's a good question. And it seems to me that you would have to give everybody their own space, especially now.
I think that they're going to require that for both the unions and certainly the actors. I think that's where Airbnb might have an advantage. When I went to Paris, I managed to find this little place for $34 a night. Being the cheap line producer that I am, I'm just going to be there to sleep, eat a little, and gone. So what do I care? So I think Airbnb is a distinct advantage on that. As far as the cleaning of the Airbnb, I think they're going to have to have their own protocols going. Here it is. Here's the lockbox to get in. Here are the wipes to do the lockbox. It's been cleaned. We've certified it. And you're the only one going in and out of there for the next 10 days or whatever the number is. They have also talked about the idea that given the isolation factors, that they take the entire cast and crew and put them in a hotel and isolate them until a certain point of prep to where you wrap the film. That's what I was talking about with Romania. So
I like that, actually.
Yeah.
And as a director and as the creative in me really likes that, because I find that when you empower your crew to work like they care creatively about your film, they work better on your film.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can isolate your cast and crew, obviously there's going to be social situations that you're going to have to deal with. But if you could literally put everybody in a pocket for 21 days to make your movie, your cast and crew, you just put them in a bubble.
I think
that's the best way.
I think it is. I think, and you get everybody certified before they go into this isolation tent, for lack of a better term. I think you have to think of it psychologically. It's like I tell people, I go, the lockdown, I'm Irish. It doesn't do shit to me. We're used to being in jail. So this doesn't, this means, it's in my DNA. I just go right, and I'm like, whatever. Okay. But a lot of people are going to get very antsy and they want to get out and about. So is there a hotel with a park area? Can you actually get a band to set up outside the hotel to play so you can actually have some kind of concert activity? Can you actually have this part where it's almost like the fence in the Berlin Wall where your family shows up and you can at least say hi from 10 feet away? For psychological sustenance, if you think about it. But you have a bingo night. Do you have a trivia night? Do you also, have somebody who, and I'm making stuff up, but you might have someone who does get clearance in some way as a massage therapist, and they've been thoroughly tested, and then they're able to come in and
Sure.
do something to one person, and then they have to leave because that's all you got. But I mean, you start to think, and that's not probably a good one, but the point is, though, is how do you have enough amusement so that the grips don't, sneak out to a strip club and then come back and infect everybody? I mean, you have to have apps on your phones. You have bands on your hands that say, well, you're going beyond the perimeter.
Right.
And, you willingly said, I'm not going to go beyond the perimeter. It's almost like an ankle bracelet thing.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
it's just crazy.
It's so
it's Orwellian.
It is very Orwellian.
It's like a huge word this week.
Oh yeah, I mean, between surveillance and pandemic and contact tracing and everything else, but we're in a world that's look at how Netflix is so in 5 years. This is what astounding to me. Netflix 5-6 years ago, 7 whatever, was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's everything.
Yep.
And you're telling me, here's what I can't figure out. You had Disney, AT&T, NBC Universal, Viacom, Fox, et cetera, all these major, massive billion-dollar companies. Not one of them basically saw what Netflix was doing, went to the most entrepreneurial person in their company and said, we're going to give you $30 million, chase those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just go build it.
Mm-hmm.
We got a library. We're going to put it on there. We're going to compete now. It took 5-6 years for them to catch up.
Yeah.
It's that institutions are like super tankers, and it takes like 3 miles to stop.
Right.
Where indie filmmakers are nimble little frigates that can just maneuver. So that's one reason I also think that there's going to be, once the insurance is figured out, satisfying SAG, there is going to be an indie bloom of ideas. I really think so, because people take a risk with $1 million versus 50. There you go.
Well, here I think we have the best suggestion right here. Damon says plant brain bombs inside everyone, so that when they break the bubble and they go out to the strip club, you just detonate their.
Well, I think Mr. Damon Williams came up with that one. Now that's a pretty good one. I've had to have some pretty strict discipline on a set, but I think you bypassed me there, Damon.
Well, Michael, listen, we're out of time here. We've got to bring David up really quick.
You got it.
Joe put his finger up for some fucking reason.
For some reason. I love that.
Joe.
Well, and now I got to find the comments that I was looking for because you rudely, never mind.
You threw him off.
It's rude.
Yeah, you did. And un momento, por favor.
Joe's still getting in touch with his feelings.
This fall, we'll talk about him but never.
I thought this was a good point.
This fall, the odds of our indie horror films being picked up is the best it will ever be. All outlets want new blood for the fall season. If anything good comes from COVID, this is it, with the A-list horror films being shut down. That's a very good point.
I absolutely agree. In fact, I would have to absolutely agree with Lauren on that comment that I have to wonder whether my film, again, shot extremely modestly. I actually was upset with people going, okay, all these idiots aren't calling me back. Fuck it. I'm going to go to my house, shoot the film. And during the Christmas break, when everybody was available, and I laid it on in, I don't know. I think I prepped it 10 days, called up my friends who act, and they go, yes, 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 yes. And then cast 3 parts, and then boom, I was shooting. Mm-hmm. And essentially, I think Lauren is absolutely correct. And I have to wonder whether or not, without this environment, whether they would have picked my film to actually want to sell a can. But I think right now, and I understand. I'm being realistic. Giving you a realistic judgment I had about the project. But I think that absolutely is a part of it. I think that they're going to sit and go, no, we got to sell. It's either development or acquisitions right now. That's it. In development, everybody's going, I don't want to really write that script 72 more times, But the development that does come out is going to have enormous depth. I think you're going to have show Bibles where people go, I know exactly where this is. And a lot of people, including myself, are taking a show Bible and making it into a graphic novel or novel, as well as a show Bible. Because now I actually have something I can publish for a revenue stream, but at the same time, it gives it a better cachet when you're pitching it to go, oh, here's the novel. Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Wow. It's not just, it actually has its own life, its own graphic novel life. That's where I think there's some, for Lauren with her idea, if you have that and you could develop a graphic novel or novelette, novella, as it were, about that. And not only that, your actors read it and go, man, I know that character, with such depth now. It's going to be a better movie.
Well, you're talking about IP development, and you're talking about developing. We talked about this the other day, and again, we're out of time here, so I don't have to get into it. But I want to literally talk more about that with you too, because there's a surprise. Michael and I go long.
George, I need you to take this one.
Mr. Big Ed McKeever, I love you, buddy. We've got some big shit coming, me and Ed, that Michael is actually aware of and part of. So I'm excited to drop that. But Ed McKeever says thought-provoking stuff. So
thank you, Ed.
Have a place to tune in every week to discuss the current filmmaking climate, especially in these tumultuous times. Industry professionals dropping major knowledge. A game changer for the indie filmmaker. Thank you, Thank you, Ed. Love you, brother. Happy you're here, man. So, Michael, next week, come back. We will continue this conversation and we'll get this all worked out. And it's interesting. It's such an interesting perspective that you bring to all of this stuff. So, brother, I cannot thank you.
You guys are great
with us, and
even you, Joe.
I love you, and I miss you.
Sounds great. I look forward to it. Next week it is. I'll be ready.
See you.
See you. Thank you.
Bye.
Brain hurt yet, Joe?
It does. I mean, Ty saying, great discussion, guys. Very interesting. Thank you, Michael. Great work. George and Joe. Yes, Joe as well.
Love you, Joe.
I love you too, brother. This is so much fun. It really is.
I'm glad everybody really, tuned in and is paying attention and listening, because this is some important stuff. It might not be You know, super exciting for some of the members of the brigade, but it is important. And so this is like this is the important stuff. This is the parents sitting you down and making you talk about the shit you don't want to talk about. Scott Meany, thank you so much, man. Michael is an amazing guy, and we're proud and lucky to have him. Hey, is there a Mr. David Madison around anywhere? Hey, it's a bearded Madison.
Hey, how are you, bearded Romero?
Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, pal. Wonderful, wonderful show.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to your show. Yours is going to be pretty amazing too. But you know what's amazing is that beard.
Thank you.
You take 2 weeks off, and you come back with a beard.
And he looks like the Wolfman.
I look like the Wolfman? You guys been hanging around Shepard's too much. It's just like abused Dave now.
Well, you know, Joe takes a lot of shit.
Yeah, really. Come on, give me a little ounce of... Damn it.
Now, when you say I look like the Wolfman, are we talking about Del Toro's or Lon Chaney's?
Michael J. Fox.
I like it.
All right, then.
Teen Wolf. It works for me.
David, you've got a great show tonight. Why don't you tell everybody what's going on here in a few minutes?
Yes, join us at the top of the hour, and you'll see me get all excited about A Christmas Story, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And Scott Schwartz, who played Flick, will be on our show tonight. And absolutely amazing timing with Michael Madison coming on the show. He's the COO and the founder of Indie Right Movies. And if you are an indie filmmaker, he's one of the key players in aggregating films and getting your film out to all the distribution outlets. So his company has actually surpassed Film Hub amongst indie filmmakers as far as aggregators. So if you're at the point where you're looking to get your movie out there, definitely tune in.
Absolutely.
You forgot to start that off with no relation.
No relation. He's much better. He's not a werewolf, apparently.
And Joe, no, he said Film Hub.
Yeah, Film Hub. Yeah,
Wrong hub.
the one that you don't have, a membership to.
I can feel my face turning red.
And we can see it.
You guys suck.
All right. David, I love you. Joe, I love you. I'm glad we're back in the saddle. David, we'll see you in a few minutes.
All right, everybody. See you at the top of the hour. And if you, George, would like to join me during my show, I'd be honored to have you.
I'd love it.
All right. See you guys at the top.
See ya.
Oh, man.
Boom. You all right? Want to talk about your feelings?
No, I got the hub on my mind.
Are you thinking, did I log out? Did I clear my history?
Damn it.
All right. Are you ready for the sign off?
Yeah, but I'm not ready for the... Oh, man. Look how late it is. I may not even...
I'm trying to get you out of your chair for a few minutes.
That's awfully sweet of you. Do you want to talk about your... I care about
your feelings.
Do you want to discuss your feelings right now?
Fuck you.
Go for it, brother.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Welcome back to season 4 of Romero Pictures Indie Brigade with me, your host, George C. Romero, and with me, as always, my ever-present and faithful producer extraordinaire, Mr. Joe Ridgely. Stay tuned for David Madison's End of the Night coming up in just about 10 minutes. And as always, fuck off till next time. To be an indie means we buck a system that doesn't want us. To be a fringe filmmaker means we don't do it for them. We do it for ourselves. To be an outlaw on the fringe means we'll die before we fail. Be an outlaw.
Hello, everybody. How are you, Mr. Ridgely?
I am well. Yourself?
I'm very well. For a minute there, I thought you were going to be silent for the rest of the evening.
Oh.
You looked like you were just like, I refuse to speak.
Not yet.
I noticed that you didn't pull this one comment up in the last show. William Glenn Russell wrote, "I think you look a little bit like Sinbad or a swashbuckler from films of the late 60s or early 70s, Dave."
I did not see that one.
I noticed that the niceties are not brought up.
Oh, I failed to see that one. I do apologize.
That's quite
If
all
I
right.
did see it, I would have brought it up.
So let me ask you something.
Sure.
You look like a totally different guy when you do my show. Why is that?
Well, as I explained, with your show, it's supposed to be a different show. I kind of let my hair down and...
You relax. You know nobody's going to blame you for anything. It's all peace and love, all niceties.
There you go. At least I hope so. That's the plan.
You know, I just did the biggest no before you're supposed to do. Hello, Mr. Meany. I just did the biggest no. Hello, Miss McDermott. I did the biggest no before you do a show. My wife baked me brownies, and the whole night. Did you ever with the smell of baked brownies in a house? And I'm just literally like the cartoon character, like floating into the living room, like literally. And I was like, George's show ended a little later than usual. It was only like 6 or 7 minutes between the shows. And I was like, I took like a brownie the size of Cleveland and just like.
So you inhaled it?
Yes, quart of milk. And that brownie was gone. So exciting stuff going on, Mr. Ridgely.
A lot of exciting stuff going on.
Yes. George's show was fantastic, but that goes without saying. I don't know if you noticed last night, but they dropped the theatrical poster for my upcoming film, Wit's End. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Done by a wonderful, wonderful artist named Stephen Gilliam. And that's the theatrical poster that if you get a chance to go and see it in theaters, that's the poster that you will see in the movie houses.
But where can they see it and when?
It's going to be in select theaters in July. You just have to check your local theater guides to see if you guys will be lucky, whoever is lucky enough to see it. Because sadly, theatrical distribution is only in a few theaters at these moments. But I know it's playing in New York, it's playing in parts of Pennsylvania, it's playing in parts of Ohio, and parts of LA at first.
Nice.
And it'll be on VOD throughout at the end of July, so everybody will be able to see it.
Excellent.
What are you doing, like a Sudoku or something?
I am.
Oh.
Check your Sudoku.
Okay. Oh, well, why don't you put him on for a minute? Ask him if it's okay.
Mr. Schiaffo, are you okay to come up right now? Give me a nod. I got to close enough.
There you go, Mr. Schiaffo.
I lost my stream.
I know you wanted to come on.
I banged my head. Can you see it? I literally just banged my head.
How did you do that?
Bang! It was an accident. I've got, there's a lot of pipage in this man cave studio that jut out of the ceiling. And you think after being down here 20 years, I know where everything is.
So
I
Uncle Scott, we just brought you on momentarily because we were talking about the theatrical poster for Wit's End coming out. And,
that's when I heard you. That's when I hit my head. It was excitement.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just see, yeah. It's a great poster. It's a really nice poster.
And Scott plays Brian O'Halloran and I are brothers in the film. And Scott plays our best friend Steve. And in a lot of the scenes that Scott is in, he steals the movie. So, but that doesn't surprise anybody. And hopefully the trailer will drop in the next 10 days. So that's exciting.
Yes, and I'm very excited for the film because I also got to do the music, which is always exciting for me.
Yes. I went to a theater today. I was talking with Scott earlier, and I got to see the movie on a giant movie screen for the first time. And any filmmaker will tell you that that's really the most exciting part of being a filmmaker is seeing your movie, on a theatrical screen for the first time. And I was quite proud. We made a cool flick, Scott.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, when we were woodshedding on the score, it was exciting. We got some Jewel Carey songs in there, which she's over the moon. So it's good stuff.
Yep. All right. Thank you for popping in, Mr. Schiaffo. I will catch up with you at the end of the show.
I'm going to go rub some balm on my head.
Yes, put some Tiger Balm on that boo-boo. Boo-boo. Did he do a sound effect at the end?
He did. He's
just way too talented. All right. As you know, I either at this point in my show speak about a film that you guys should watch during the COVID crisis, or I come up with an antiquity or an old toy. And today it's going to be an old toy. The toy that I'm going to share with you, I'm going to tell you a very, very, very sad story. When I was 5 years old, I had asked Santa for what was one of the hottest toys at the time. It was called a Duke the Action Dog. And my mother had bought me Duke the Action Dog. But sadly, because I was one of 5 brothers, my mother, in her infinite wisdom, thought it would be really smart, because we were all little scoundrels. In her infinite wisdom, thought it would be smart to hide. We had a 1975 Chevy Impala station wagon, and she thought it would be really smart to hide all of our Santa presents in the back of the station wagon so that we would never see them. But sadly, and this is how the story goes. I mean, I can't verify it, but sadly, as the story goes, the night before Christmas, on Christmas Eve, somebody had broken into our Chevy Impala and stolen all of our Christmas presents. So I woke up that morning, sadly, to getting nothing from Santa. And I was heartbroken because all I really wanted was this toy called Duke the Action Dog. Now, this story, of course, has gone on for generations. And when I got married, I told my beautiful wife, Eleanor, about how I never got a Duke the Action Dog. And last year, for my birthday, my wife actually tracked down this almost 50-year-old toy, spent an absolute fortune on it, but a lot of people who are my age will remember Duke the Action Dog. Do you remember Duke the Action Dog? Whoa, let me get him over.
Yeah.
He came, and he was a dog that would go up like a utility rope, and his little doggy mouth would move. Woof, 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 woof. And what was cool, and his tail wagged, and his legs moved. And what was really cool about Duke the Action Dog is that he had this little this thing that would hook on his back. I'll show it to you this way. And would hook onto his back, and then Duke the Action Dog, if you were like caught in an avalanche or something horrible happened to you, Duke the Action Dog would spring into action and bring this little rescue unit up to you. And that's why I desperately wanted a Duke the Action Dog.
Did Duke have a keeper, or was Duke on his own?
Duke was on his own. Duke the Action Dog, and to find one in this condition, Duke the Action Dog, is around $500 or $600, believe it or not, to still have all the pieces like I do. So you don't remember Duke the Action Dog?
I was born in 76.
Oh, okay. So you're more of a You Drive It guy. Do you remember You Drive It? Oh, you were born in 7. No, don't listen to me. So yes, Duke the Action Dog. All you guys who are over 45 right now, I know you're crapping your pants because Duke the Action Dog is cool.
You got a heckler here, Mr. Madison.
Who's the heckler? Oh man.
and a little woof woof action going on. Well,
She's speaking her native language again.
He is riveting. Matt's asking if that was Big Jim's dog.
No, Big Jim's dog was not Duke the Action Dog. Big Jim was the nickel and dime store version of G.I. Joe. Yes. And he had fake painted on hair, where G.I. Joe had real facial hair. He kind of looked like me. I look like a real life G.I. Joe. So, yes. Zing! Oh, it's actually Scott Giaffo's for. He's going to sue you, Tiff. It's his. Scott Giaffo is Mr. Zing. All right, enough of this gibberish. Is our esteemed guest with us yet?
Which one would that be?
Mr. Schwartz.
I don't like him.
Okay.
Can we go on to
yeah, we'll go on to the next guy. It's up to you. Entirely up to you. There he is. Looking very presidential.
Scott?
Can you hear?
It's a little cooler outside, so I put the sweater on.
I like it. Is it a presidential sweater?
Yes, it is.
Nice, nice. So where are you tonight, Mr. Schwartz? You don't have to give us like an exact location, but like a state.
California.
Nice. And is it
sitting outside the back of my house trying to figure out who the hell the dog was that you were talking about? Because I'm older than you are, and I have no idea what the hell the dog was anything.
And
Mr.
he was
Schwartz,
boy, man.
I mean, we had the esteemed and wonderful Tiffany Shep is here, and she didn't have an idea who the hell the freaking dog was that you had on the thing here.
Well, Duke the Action Dog.
Duke the Action Dog, yes.
Duke the Action Dog was one of the most popular toys of 1975.
So I was 7, and I still don't have a clue who the hell he was. I was into Evel Knievel.
I think you were either playing with Evel Knievel or Grigori the Bat.
Yeah. Hey, Demond, how are you?
Do you remember Grigori the Bat?
Nope.
No? Did your parents love you by any chance?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I had my big wheel, and I had my Evel Knievel stuff. Jesus, what else did I have? I don't think I had any Kiss stuff till like 75 or 76.
Did you ever get to upgrade to the green machine?
No, I didn't want a green machine. I love my big wheel.
I was a big wheel guy too, but it was cool because in 1979, I got a big wheel that was Battlestar Galactica that looked like a Colonial Viper.
Hello, Tiffany. Love that girl. Love you, babe.
Well, somebody has to. So thank you for joining us tonight, Mr. Schwartz. How are you?
Well, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm just going to talk to you, David. Joe's got a lot of animosity. He's got a lot of anger issues. I mean, if you're still talking about something that you're upset about from, oh my God, 38 plus years ago, I'm sure that there's a very good doctor that can handle this.
It's called my wife.
Now I understand. Okay. So I'm getting what you don't want to give to her, basically. So you're just dumping it on me. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's all good.
Oh, I can't even deal.
I want to divulge into your storied acting career, especially one of your first films, The Toy.
First film?
Yep. You got to work with 2 living legends in that movie. And to say these guys are living legends are absolutely true. You got to work with Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason, as I recall.
Hey, there we are.
Yeah. Can you give us a little insight on what it was like to work with Mr. Pryor?
Well, that particular day of that shot, it was about 104 degrees. I mean, we were schwitzing our brains out, and that suit is like 100% wool. And I probably lost like 4 pounds of water weight that day. If you see around my collar, there's a white line. That's the T-shirt I was wearing under that wool outfit, and it was just drenched. We were dying that particular day. But no, working with Richard was amazing. Probably the most open, honest, to me, person I've ever dealt with. There wasn't a subject, a topic, anything he wouldn't discuss with me, wouldn't talk to me about, stuff I shouldn't even have heard at 13, 14 years old. He just let it out because he had no filter. Mr. Gleason, I still call him Mr. Gleason. Sometimes I called him on the set, I called him Pop or Dad, but I still call him Mr. Gleason out of respect. As much as I loved Richard, Gleason to me was 10 times bigger because I was a Honeymooners junkie. I was a Smokey and the Bandit fanatic. I don't know if you ever did this, but in middle school, I had to bike to school most days. So it was like, I think it was 3 miles. If you lived within 3 miles, you had to get there some other way. And I was like 2.9 miles. So I had a bike to school. And on my Sony Walkman cassette player, I didn't have the typical what everybody else did. Most people had music. I had movies. I had Blazing Saddles, History of the World Part 1, Smokey and the Bandit, Airplane, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Those were the movies I had on cassette, and I listened to them to and from school riding my bike. So I did Gleason as well as Gleason did Gleason. So to me, as much as I loved Richard, Gleason was 10 times more because of the love that I had for him. And he was kind. He wasn't the same way kind as Richard. He was just different, but he would talk to me, and I would ask him things. And being a non-typical 13, 14-year-old, I didn't ask stupid questions. I asked questions that I wanted to know. Being that my father was from Brooklyn, he was from New York. So we talked about places in New York, things like that. But then it was like I went into him with, did you get to meet Jolson? Did you get to meet George M. Cohan? The icons of the generations before, Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of people. He had met George M. Cohan. To me, that was like, those stories were just amazing.
It's funny that you should bring that up because when I was a kid, and I was born in 1970, so I assume we're relatively close in age.
I'm 68.
Okay. I used to take the little cassette recorders, the ones with the buttons in the front, and tape movies myself. And I used to love to record the Bing Crosby and Bob Hope road pictures, more of the musical stuff. Because it was like you couldn't get musical soundtracks and stuff like that back then.
I had Yankee Doodle Dandy on tape. I had the Jolson story on tape. Mm-hmm. Oh God, there's one more that I know that I'm missing. Jolson Sings Again, the other Al Jolson movie. Mm-hmm. So I love musicals as well. The comedy thing with me, I just loved it because I would laugh. I'd be going to school, I'd be laughing.
And that's why you had such great, amazing comic timing as a young man, and you still do.
To some degree, but you learn it as you go. I had done Broadway, off-Broadway commercials, things like that, but I had never done a heavy comedy as I was doing with them. And Richard made it easy. He really did, as crazy as it sounds. My first day of shooting was a disaster. I worked with Gleason. It's the scene in the limousine where I'm going back to the military academy. And I'm crying in the back of the car. They wanted to get that scene out of the way first. And it was a disaster because nobody had told me what ad-libbing was. I didn't know. I'd never dealt with it. Everything else is you have a script, you follow the script. And so my first day of shooting is a disaster. Almost led to me getting fired, but I hung on fine. But Richard called, between talking to my father for a few minutes and then later that night, I went to Richard's room. He called me up. He said, "Hey, we got to talk." And he sort of laid out movie making and what it is. And it's okay. You don't have to stick to the script. You can go other places and whatever. And I knew the script backwards and forwards. So it was like the first maybe 10 days, I was still following the script. But then every day I was hanging out with Richard and going to his room at night, playing video games, playing Mattel and television. I felt so comfortable with him that I started ad-libbing with them. So it really taught me more about that genre and that idea of what to do and how to make it work.
Now, when you're saying Richard, you're meaning Pryor. Or Donner?
No, Pryor.
Okay. All right. Now, of course, Richard Donner directed the toy, as I recall. And Richard Donner went on to do some of the biggest motion pictures in history. He did the Superman. I I think he did both 1 and 2, if I recall correctly.
Well, he did both of them before the toy.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
He does Superman in I think 77, and he does Superman 2 and I think 80.
Okay.
He shot 80% or 70% of Superman 2, and it was dark. It was very dark. It wasn't lighthearted. It wasn't what we saw on the screen. And him and I think Warner Brothers, they had a falling out, and they canned him after he had shot 70% of the film. And then they brought in Richard Lester to finish the film.
Okay.
So the movie that we remember
is Richard Lester's
70% of it is Donner and 30% is Lester. But then they actually did. Warner Brothers got so beat up, I guess you could say, over decades of people going, we want to see the Richard Donner version.
Right.
And they finally brought it out on DVD. And I mean, it's great.
Yeah, it's essentially that generation's what's going on kind of with this generation's Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League, which is now going to HBO Max. They had, a cry from the fans to get the movie out. And I think Richard Donner's version of Superman 2 is by far a better film.
I agree.
Yep. On to your next film. I'm going to share a story that you might find amusing. The last 2 years as a Christmas present from my wife.
Well, that's not my next film, but that's okay though. We can go to it. Go ahead.
No. You. Oh, it's not your next film. I apologize. I don't cheat and have IMDb up in front of me or anything. I try to do everything by memory.
That's okay.
One of your your iconic roles. Joe? What'd you pop up and start laughing for? Do I need like you're like that old crotchety Muppet who sits up in the top of the theater and just yeah, that guy.
Except I have better hair.
Yes, that's true. And it's real hair, actually.
Yes.
It's more for your wife to pull.
Yes.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
On to every 2 Christmases ago, my wife surprised me with my big Christmas gift being to spend Christmas Eve in the original Christmas Story house in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And we got to spend it the last 2 Christmas Eves in the house. And I guess my very first question, it's absolutely one of my favorite films of all time. And you should be, I'm sure you're honored and thrilled to be in what's literally this generation. It's a Wonderful Life. Did you ever really, while making that film, see it becoming what it ultimately became?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm going to grab a pen, and I want you to give me the next week's Mega Lotto numbers, and that's you could pretty much equate it to that. Right. I had done all the things that I had done, the Broadway, Off-Broadway, all that. I did the toy. I did another film in the middle called Kidco. Then I come to Christmas Story, and it's a low-budgeted film. There's no big stars. There's no special effects. There's no nothing. This is a blackmail film. That's how this movie got made. Bob Clark had done this other small little independent film called Porky's, and made so much money that they were hounding him. They were on top of him, like a brick, like a ton of bricks going Porky's 2, Porky's 2. And he knew this was the one time in his life he had the juice, he had the power to get something that he wanted to do done. And so he talked them into doing A Christmas Story. They fought with him tooth and nail, even down to the budget. He wanted a $5 million budget, and they offered him a $4 million budget. Yeah, there's me and some of the guys. Ian Petrella, Randy in the front, and Peter Billingsley, Ralphie, and then the kid behind me is R.D. Robb, who played Schwartz. So he gets A Christmas Story made. It's a labor of love. He loves Gene Shepard. He loved the story. There's so many stories about who was going to be the old man. Jack Nicholson was in love with this script and wanted to do it. And, his agent wanted more money than the entire budget for just Jack. Jack, from what I understand, but Bob had said he would do it anyway. He would do it for scale. He loved the script. He loved everything. Of course, his agent said, you can't do that. So it comes to Darren McGavin, and it was magical. It was pure magic what happened. You lightning in a bottle. That's what this was. I'm one of an ensemble That was just a great cast from top to bottom, you know. And again, that's Bob Clark. That is Bob Clark at his finest, you know, from the littlest things to the biggest things. From, you know, Teddy Moore as the teacher, Miss Shields, who was wonderful. The other kids, you know, other than one who wasn't really a professional actor that I joke about, whatever, you know, the kid in the classroom, you know, oh my God, it's the cops. I mean, it was just, it was hysterical, you know, but Bob couldn't cut that out because the kid's dad was one of Bob's best friends. So he had to leave the kid in the movie. But, you know, Randy, Ralphie, Scott Farkas, the bully, Grover Dill, everybody was great. Mom, Melinda Dillon. And it became something much more than anybody thought. MGM had no faith in the film. They didn't even want to put it in the movie theaters. They basically were going to shelve it and put it on VHS. And Bob called Darren. I guess they had some talks, and Darren had people that were willing to back them to buy the film from MGM to get it a theatrical release. And of course, that MGM said, okay, we'll put it in the theaters.
And as I recall, it wasn't even that. It wasn't a huge success on its first run in the theaters, as I recall.
It opened at 400 theaters.
Right.
People go, oh, it really wasn't a big success. I'm like, it didn't open in 3,000 theaters, folks.
Right.
It opened up in 400 theaters. The second week it's out, it goes up to 1,200 theaters and was like number 2 at the box office. It actually did more money, I believe, than 48 Hours that second week. You know, I mean, that's like a big deal back then. You know,
absolutely.
Then the third week, I think it went to like 1,400 theaters. The fourth week is the low because all the theaters, the Christmas movies were coming out, and Christmas Story was gonzo, you know. And then it sits there for the next 13 years. It sits on VHS, and it's in no man's land. But you had this core group of people that just loved it, and they would pass it around and tell their friends, "You got to get it on video, whatever." And then, you know, the fortunes be that Ted Turner buys the MGM library, needed a few movies, and Christmas Story was one of the last 2 films that he picked to be in the group of films that he bought to put on TNT. And, you know, his secretary, from what I understand, his secretary was the one who told him to buy it. Insisted that he buy this wonderful film that he had never seen. Then he watched it on VHS. He bought it, and then they suggested the marathon. You know, they had done it with Wizard of Oz. The first year was okay. The second year went in the toilet. Then they did It's a Wonderful Life. The first year was okay. The second year went in the toilet. So they figured at least if it goes 1 to 2 years, if it goes 2 years, they made all their money back on the film that they spent. And here we are 24 years later, and they back the Brinks truck up every year to load up the money.
Yeah, I could tell you when I visit the house, the lines are around the block. I mean,
well, the house really, I mean, the house is the house. We get that. Now, the house, the way that it stood originally, we just used the exteriors of the house, the outside of the house. The interiors were a soundstage in Toronto. So the guy that bought the house just gutted it, redid it, made it look like the movie, and now it's the Christmas Story house. You know, right? And he pays Warner Brothers a licensing fee and all that stuff, and has all the products and does all that, and we see 8 cents. It's whatever.
Yeah, but luckily for him, that a lot of that film, a lot of the character of the house are the exteriors. So it's not like you're really missing out when you're going to it. It's funny
I mean, you go into the house now. I mean, it's got the kitchen, it's got the bedrooms, it's got the living room. So they've made it to look like the movie set. There's no question.
And the backyard, they have the fence, and you can see all the steam iron factories back there, just like you do in the movie. Yep. You know, Jack Nicholson would have been, you know, an interesting choice to play the old man, but I think
different altogether.
Yeah, I think Darren McGavin is like one of those where the stars aligned and God appointed him to play that role, and there's nobody who could have ever did it justice like he did. Now, Bob Clark was also the director of the film that a lot of people call the precursor to John Carpenter's Halloween, Black Christmas. And it's kind of interesting that he went from doing a film like Black Christmas to doing a film like A Christmas Story, because they're two totally different types of
But
feeling.
Bob's thing was all over the place.
Mhm.
You know, again, I mean, he does Black Christmas. He does Porky's Christmas Story. You want to talk about three genres that are totally in different places. You know, there's nothing that's lining up here, you know. Bob actually, you know, I mean, I spoke to Bob many, many times before he was gone. God rest his soul, miss that man. He was actually working with Carpenter on the beginnings of Halloween.
Oh, wow.
He was giving him ideas, and I mean, that movie opened up the genre. You know, children don't play with dead things. You know, and then you get Halloween, When a Stranger Calls. I mean, all of those things came from, you know, Bob and Black Christmas.
Absolutely.
And I don't remember. He was telling me he was working on another film, and he couldn't continue his writing, doing stuff, developing with John. So he kind of said, hey, I really wish you good luck. You know, hopefully, you know, whatever happens, happens. And the ideas you got, you know, you play with them and you expand on them and it'll work. And it turns into Halloween. You know, and Bob never went back to John and said, hey, you know, I came up with this idea, so you owe me. That was not Bob Clark. Bob was happy for him. God bless him. Let him make all the money in the world. He didn't care. Bob was happy with his life. And, you know, he was just happy that his influence, there was just some great movie makers, you know, behind him that he influenced.
Yep. And I'm sorry to be all over the place. I just totally really adore the film. Your iconic scene when you get your tongue stuck on the frozen pole.
Mm-hmm.
I heard there's a very interesting way that they made it so that it looked like your tongue was literally stuck on a pole. Can you share with our viewers how that happened?
Well, that's what you're seeing. The pole there was plastic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, underneath it, there really is a real flagpole. But that piece was plastic. They just put it over it. They painted it to make it look rusty and old. They put a hole in it about the size of your pinky nail. And they ran a tube on the inside down into the snow. And they had a little motor, like from a Dirt Devil, a little vacuum cleaner motor. And it was just used as a suction tube. That was it.
And this way, when you pulled back, it would naturally hold your tongue in place. That's what.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few takes where I tried to extend and it went too far and I popped off. Okay, we just do it again. Yeah. Yep. But most of the time it held it there and it worked.
Now, Peter Billingsley, the star Ralphie, has gone on to be a major player in the MCU, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think he was a producer on Iron Man.
Yeah, he worked with Jon Favreau, so he did the first Iron Man. Yeah.
Yes, John and I actually went to Queens College together. That's how I know him and Peter went to worked on that together, and it's astonishing how so much good synergy came from that film. Can you tell us a little bit about the Quarantine Bunch, the show you're doing currently?
It was a fun show. It was, you know, we're going to do this thing. We're all going to get together. But nobody could go anywhere. We're all stuck in our houses. And they came up with the Quarantine Bunch, and we're going to do it just, you know, via Zoom rooms and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was great because it's all a bunch of people that, for the most part, know each other. You know, old former child stars who are discussing what they're going to do during this quarantine time, and you know, just make fun and have jokes. And it was a cute show. Yeah, I think there's 6 episodes. I think they've released. I think there might be some audio difficulty or something with episode 7 or 8, something like that. So they haven't put out the last 2 episodes yet. But you know, great cast.
Yeah, I know you have Judy Norton from the Waltons, correct?
Yeah, Judy Norton.
Is it Jeremy Miller?
Jeremy Miller from Growing Pains. Keith Coogan from Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead and The Adventures of Babysitting and Fox and the Hound.
And the Waltons.
And the Waltons, yeah, he did Waltons. And we had Danny Cooksey, you know, or Danny Pintaro. I'm sorry.
Danny Pintaro from Who's the Boss?
From Who's the Boss?
Yeah,
who I've known since he was a kid, since way back in those days. Dean McDermott, Tori Spelling's husband, who has done a ton of things throughout the years, and he's great. You know, to me, it's like I always pull me out of the mix because I don't ever put me in there. But He is great. I mean, it's a riot, the role he's playing, like an Irish guy, and with the accent and the word and the verbiage and all. He was dynamite, you know.
Sweet. Can you tell us anything about, I think it's an upcoming film of yours that has to do with Christmas and wrestling?
David loves his Waltons. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's a running gag because ever since the quarantine, the Waltons plays on the Hallmark channel, and everybody on this, all our viewers likes to make fun of me because I stay up till like 5 o'clock in the morning watching the Waltons.
You know, the good Lord invented a DVR, but if that's what makes you happy, God bless, enjoy whatever you
To
want.
each his own.
Exactly.
I'm getting old and pathetic.
The wrestling Christmas movie. It's a low independent film that I did the beginning of the year with some fun people. You know, Julie McCullough's in it from Growing Pains, and she was a Playboy Playmate. She's a stand-up comedian, and she's hysterical. Most of the actors are local to New York. You know, Buddy, I think Kirkpatrick is his last name. He's a stand-up comedian. He was great. He was just great to work with. Fun. You know, great timing, you know, but I'm one of those people. It's like, you know, somebody calls and I go and I do something, I bounce, and I'm professional. I show up on time. I do the job I'm supposed to do, and we all have fun and we go home.
No, absolutely. That's the way filmmaking should be.
The movie is all about a kid that gets sick, and his friend, who's the sort of the star of the film, not really, but he wants to make a movie to make his friend feel better in the hospital. They shoot it, the movie gets stolen, and then you got to find out who's stolen it and how to get it back and all that kind of stuff. So, you know.
And you have also some, sorry.
It's a cute picture.
I also see you had something called The Bend in the works. Is that something you've shot yet?
No, that was something from like 2-3 years ago. I don't think that's ever going to get made. Which was a shame because I grew a full beard for it. I mean, I had a full on, you know, guy up in the wilderness look, you know, and I grew the thing for like 6 months. And then finally the guy was like, you know, no, we just don't have it now, you know, right now. And so I was like, okay. And I ended up shaving it off.
Sweet. Do you have anything that you want to share coming up with our audience tonight? Any upcoming projects or films or?
You know what? With all of that's going on, who the hell knows? I don't know if anybody can actually tell you, yes, on this date, I'm going to be doing this thing. You know, I don't think we're quite there yet. We're getting closer, you know. I mean, hopefully by September, October, some of the shows will be up and running. Chiller Theater in New Jersey. And there's another horror con in Atlantic City. I may be going there. Might go to New York. There might be one in Boston. You know, Rhode Island Comic Con was pushed back to 2021. I mean, you know, that kind of stuff. But, you know, actual projects that, as far as acting wise, nothing right now because there's nothing. We're kind of in no man's land quandary zone.
I know, it's kind of horrifying. Can you let everybody know where they can find you?
Where they can find me?
Yeah, like on social media.
I only have my own Facebook account. It's in my name. You know, I don't accept everybody in. I didn't really start it as a fan page. I started it for me. I do have a Twitter. I think it's Scott, a.k.a. The Real Flick. I think that's what it is. I don't go on it very often. You know, I mean, maybe I'm just old school. You know, maybe and I don't think I'm more private than most people. Ask me questions. I talk about anything. I just don't feel like I have to tell people every 10 minutes, you know, hey, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to the post office or the bank or the bathroom or whatever. I don't need to do that, you know. And I'm sure it's a detriment to the fan base. You know, people want to talk to me and whatever. I'm not a reality star, so I'm not one of those people that is looking to build, you know, 500,000 people on their social media because they have to feel important. You know, it's just never been me. You know,
well, you also don't have to. I mean, you will always be a part of a film that's a part of America's heritage and legacy. You are, you know,
that's luck.
Flick.
That's luck. That's really what that is. That's luck. Oh, but listen, I knock on whatever you're supposed to knock on, and
knock on Joe's head.
It's I have no comment. I can't comment on Joe's head. I can't.
For those that don't know what's going on right now,
Is he going to tell the story again?
I have no idea what the story is, so he might.
Well, I told the story to you pre-show. For those that are tuning in that don't know, is that I actually auditioned for the toy, the role that Scott got.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did.
And about 7,000 or 8,000 others. I mean, it is what it is, you know.
I got my picture with Mr. Gleason, and
I never knew you were an actor, Joe.
I'm not, apparently.
No. Well, you play a producer every week. You do a relatively good job.
Well, relatively good. Thank you.
He gets people to show up. It's like, okay, you know,
Absolutely.
he does his job.
Mr. Schwartz, it was an absolute honor and a privilege to have you on my show tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for a lifetime of great memories with that great films that you've been a part of.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. But, you know, it's not something that I thought would ever happen. But it was what was meant to be. And people put me in the position to do the things that I did. You know, I've always said, you know, you can be the greatest actor in the world, but if the person on the other side of the table, the producer, director, doesn't see it, then you don't get that job. And sometimes it's a little thing like, you know, oh, well, I kind of have, you know, I had sandy dark hair, you know, sandy blonde hair. Well, we really want a brunette. We really want a kid with brown eyes. We really want somebody who's 5'4", you're 5 foot. I mean, a lot of times it comes down to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you could be the most talented guy in the world and never get a job because the person on the other side of the table goes, you know, Scott, you're really good, but I'm really looking for a guy that looks like Joe. I got no shot. That's his gig then, you know.
Yeah, but you also have to have a certain level of charm and talent, and you have to bring something to the table to make something that's everlasting. So,
well, if I could tell one last story, how I got the toy, realistically, is because of Airplane, the movie Airplane. As crazy as that sounds, I all the way through the audition process, I get to my screen test. I'm in California. I'm sitting outside the stage at the Warner Brothers lot. And the woman comes in and she says, I'm very sorry Richard Pryor cannot be here to do the audition with you. So we have another black actor that's going to be playing his role. All right, fine. So I closed the door and I was pissed because I'm like, if I don't get this movie now, I'm never going to meet Richard Pryor and, you know, whatever. So the guy comes to the door, knocks on the door. Hi, how you doing? You know, my name's Norman. You know, let's take a walk around so we can get a little, you know, camaraderie. Sure. And we're talking. I'm like, you know, you look familiar. He's like, oh, well, I did this episodic. Nope, that's not it. I did this. Nope, that's not it. I did this. Nope, that's not it. He said, well, I it might be too old for you being your age, but I did a movie called Airplane. Well, he's the guy on the aisle, the two jive guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I went from Richard Pryor to Richard Pryor. Who's that? This is the jive guy.
Jive guy, right?
Shit, man. Butterlay me to the bone. Check me up. Tight me. You know, cut it, say Kane Hain. I know this movie like the back of my hand. So when he said it, I went there and I went right into Airplane mode and went into jive mode. So I was so comfortable with him. By the time we get on the set, you know, in the soundstage, I got no problem. It's like I've known this guy 20 years and we're just going like this. And he told Richard Donner and Ray Stark, the producer, what I was doing outside. So I did the dialogue a couple times, and then Richard Donner says, Scotty, okay, forget all that. Do the scene in jive talk. Okay. You know, and I just did it. I just started coming downstairs, and it just came out of my mouth. And he's playing off of me, and we're going back. And that, I mean, I think realistically, that's what did it for me, because they saw I can move, I can switch, I can bounce. And that's what Richard Pryor was going to do to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, you got it because you were able to do that. I mean, not everybody's able to do that.
And it's, again, you could have picked any African-American black actor in Hollywood, and I would not have cared. One of those two guys made all the difference. You know, Norman Gibbs, who was the guy, you know, he was wonderful. And I have a Polaroid of it from that day of me and him sitting at the bottom of the staircase that they had made for the scene we did. And I didn't see this man for 30, I got to think, it's 38, like 33 years, 34 years. I hadn't seen him. And he was going to be at an autograph show here in town in LA. And I broke out the Polaroid. The man hasn't seen me in all these years. He's not going to know nothing, you know. So I said, Norman, it's a pleasure, sir. Would you sign my picture? And I hand it to him. And he goes, oh my God, where did you get this? And I looked at him and I go, Norman, it's me, Scotty, from the picture. Oh my God. And, you know, and that was it. But, you know, it's a huge reason why I got the toy was because of Airplane. As crazy as that sounds.
Well, that's awesome. And that's the kind of synergy that gets, you know, talented people roles. So,
yeah. Josang lose blood. She gonna catch a bone to rebound on the meta side. What is Big Mama? Mama no is no dummies. I duck her rap. Cut me some slack, Jack. Yeah.
And on that note, it was a pleasure and an honor, Mr. Schwartz. I have another guest in the green room awaiting. Thank you so much for being on our show tonight. And please come on again.
And Scott, you and I bust balls all the time. It's always a pleasure, sir. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to end this by saying, lay him down and smack him, yak him. Got to be Yoshi. You guys be well and stay safe, okay?
You too, Mr. Schwartz. Thank you for doing our show.
You got it.
He's an interesting cat.
Oh, he definitely put me in my place.
He did. I have no idea how, but he did.
Oh, all right.
Is Mr. Romero around?
Mr. Romero, are you around? Let's see.
Mr. Romero, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm doing great. I would love for you. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I love.
Yeah, I'm such a geek when it comes to A Christmas Story, though, that I don't know. I get tongue tied because I have like a gazillion thoughts going through my head, and I'm like, you know, it's like when it's something I really like, I turn into Chris Farley interviewing Paul McCartney. Yeah. Was like the Beatles fun? Yes, it was fun. Yes. So so I apologize for that.
I thought you did great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Well, I don't want to leave our next guest awaiting us, but I wanted you to join us, George, because you are just an absolute brilliant mind when it comes to film and indie film. And Mr. Madison, of course, is one of the major players in the indie film market. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Michael Madison is about to join us. Hello, Mr. Madison. How are you?
Hi. Nice to meet you guys.
Hey,
Nice
Mike.
to meet you. You have a wonderful name, by the way.
Yeah, that is a good name. I have my middle name's David also, so
Well,
nice coincidence.
Sadly, you got all the talent baggage, though.
And the looks, apparently.
Yeah, this dude looks just like Captain America. It's not fair.
Hey.
Doesn't he look like Chris Evans?
are you in, or where are you? Are you in LA?
Los Angeles, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you need to be careful with a name like that. Tiffany Shepis may come gunning for you.
Yeah, she has she's for some bizarre reason she doesn't like me, Mr. Madison. I don't know why.
Oh.
I think it's the whole I have talent and she doesn't thing. But what can I tell you? Two Scotts and two Madisons tonight, Mr. Meany tells us. Well, Michael, thank you for being on.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about the service that you're first tell us your company's name and the service it provides to indie filmmakers?
Sure. Well, it's Indie Rights, and it's we're a distributor. So right now we're getting ready for the Cannes film market. It's going to be a Cannes virtual film market. And what we do is we distribute films. That's our main thing. We also sometimes distribute television shows. And our main source, our main bread and butter is like VOD. That's the main thing. So we long time ago we beta tested a lot of the new platforms that were coming out. So we got our foot in the door for that, and from there we've just been growing. Every single time there's new things popping up all the time. Right now there's Pluto TV that's going to be something hot, I think. Crackle TV. So yeah, that's what we do. So we take a film. It's usually word of mouth too, so we don't go out trying to find films. It's usually a filmmaker tells another filmmaker, and we have kind of a unique situation because we're Lyndon Nelson and I. We founded the company, and we're filmmakers. We were filmmakers first. We started the company when we had a very small, low budget film, and tried to get distribution for it after we did the film festival circuit, and the deals were just horrible. The fees, you never make any money. They were charging you so much money. And before that, we made a film called In Sync Bigger Than Live. It's an IMAX giant screen film, and it played out all the museums and the theaters at the time. It was around, I think, 2000, 2001. So we did the distribution ourselves for that, and we kind of thought, maybe we could figure out how to do distribution for independent film. And from there, we grew the company by just we met filmmakers on the film festival circuit, took their films. We went around and the companies that were starting out, most of them are out of business, but we would beta test and give them films, and just kept growing. It took a long time. We had day jobs for many years, but what we do is we pay 80% to the filmmaker from the first dollar that comes in. We keep 20%. We don't charge any expenses. So our investment with the films is working on the films, and we have to make money for the films to pay our expenses with the encoding and everything like that. When we pay quarterly, first dollar that comes in, you get paid 90 days after the quarter ends. We upload from the office. We have fast internet, and all of our filmmakers, we kind of become friends. We're friends with all the filmmakers. We have a private group on Facebook that we use to communicate with the filmmakers, talk about what's happening at the market. If we're selling to Chinese buyers, one thing they would always do is they pull out their phone and see what the IMDb rating is. So we would say, hey, you guys got to work on your IMDb ratings, stuff like that. So
it's funny because you brought up that it was like word of mouth. I found out about your company because I'm about to drop a film, and there's a gentleman named Alex Ferrari.
Oh yeah, we know that.
Yeah. Who's a major player in the indie film community. Yeah. And he said, for me, I was thinking about utilizing Film Hub, and he said, don't use Film Hub, use Indie Rights. And I looked up into your company, and that's when I reached out to you. And you guys just have an amazing reputation. And he gave me an idea of what separates you guys from Film Hub, but can you give me a little bit of what you think that is?
Let's see how to say it. So when we take films, the difference between Film Hub and us is that when we take a film, we can get it on all the platforms. And I believe the difference between Film Hub is that the platforms have to go to Film Hub to pick films, or Film Hub has to say, we think these 10 films would be great for your platform. That's one thing. Also, we're hands-on with the filmmakers. We try to help them with marketing. We have a 50-page marketing plan that kind of helps you with, Instagram, best practices at the time. It's always changing. Every 6 months, things are changing. And it's just Linda and I. We're the owners. We have no investors. That's huge thing. It's a lot of, you're going to see a lot of these companies, they go out of business because they take investors like a distributor, or, every single year there's a person that buys a film at Sundance for millions of dollars, and a couple years later they spend all their money buying films and they're out of business. So we don't have investors. It's just our own investment.
Yeah, and from what I understand, you guys more vigorously push and promote the films that you guys.
Yeah.
And,
we're on our private group every single day talking about what's happening. We try to, the filmmakers, we like the filmmakers talking to each other, and they become friends, and they try to help and promote each other's films. We're very transparent. That's probably one of the best things. We're very transparent. We believe in transparency, so that if a filmmaker is making a lot of money and you're making $1.50 a quarter, you can see that there's maybe you need to tweak something with your film, and also there's nothing to hide. So we try to be as transparent as possible with every single thing that we do.
And now, when a filmmaker sends you a film, what do you look for in these films?
Right now we're taking fewer and fewer films because platforms now are not taking all films. I mean, before, you'd have Amazon, and I could put a film up on Amazon, and back, just a couple of years ago, you make 20 cents an hour. Now, and if I put the film up and enough people watch it, we'll make some money on it. But now, if a film doesn't have something to market it by, it could make a penny, could get taken off the platform. Sometimes platforms, if they're not getting enough views, it costs money for them to put a film up on the platform. So sometimes, like a Tubi TV, they've taken down films that, they're not making any money anyways, but the filmmaker likes to have their film up there, but it's still costing the platforms money to put the films up there. So what we look for, I look at the trailer first. I look for a genre that's sellable.
Is marketable names important to you guys?
Yes, but the film still has to be good.
Mm.
And then I watch the trailer, and hopefully the trailer's cut, something exciting. And then I watch the movie. And right now, movies have to catch somebody right away. They can't have this long, drawn out build up to the first thing that happens in the film. So I usually look for something like that. Films that, there's a lot of people that make films that are dramas, that are about relationships, and those are really hard to sell, especially if a lot of people that are in college are making films about struggling with their being a young person, trying to figure out what they want to do. I'll take those films if if it has a name, or if there's something that catches me. But films that I'm starting to stay away from are a lot of times foreign films don't do well at all in the United States, and they're beautiful films, and we've tried distributing a lot of foreign films, but just in the United States, they don't want that. There's just so many English films that they don't want to watch foreign films. Documentaries are really hard. If you do a documentary about cancer, it's just, it's a super important subject. And, there's people that want to watch for whatever that subject is, like, dying of cancer or something like that. But there's just not enough people to watch the film. And, trying to manage expectations of filmmakers is really important, because, you'll put a film up about a political figure that no one knows about, and the person that made the film thinks it's really important. And if it doesn't do well, then you got a really angry person. So try, it's a balancing act with that.
It's funny.
A lot of angry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I bet you deal with a lot of we talk about that a lot on our shows. Is a lot of filmmakers feel like the companies that do have a lot of investors and jump in and spend a lot of money, and charge them a lot of money on marketing fees. A lot of indie filmmakers are really nervous about talking to guys like you, Michael.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's why, so I have a submission form on our website that people submit. And what I like to see is that if Alex Ferrari or another one of our filmmakers, we have some filmmakers that have made a lot of money, and they can go and tell their like they were with maybe another major player, like one of the major studios, and they get their rights back. We put their film out, or we put another one of their films out, and they can see that the first dollar that comes in, they get paid. That's the best way for me to get a film. If a person just blindly Google's distribution and rights to us, they've got this wall that we have to break down, and it's really exhausting to trying to tell them that we're not going to take advantage of them, because there's most of the distributors are pretty they take advantage of filmmakers. And since Linda and I were filmmakers and we put our own money, we made 2 films with our own money. The first film we made was with an investor, and after we did that, he didn't make back his money on that film, and that was a $4 million film. So, and then we tried to raise more money for another film, and I know how it is to be in a filmmaker when you have no money, and you're also, at the time, we were living off of our credit cards because we were so sure we were going to raise money for a motocross film that was going to be for IMAX, and that was around 2002. And, we just, extended our money as far as you could. And then we just hit, rock bottom, have to start over. And what Lynn and I did is she took a job at Target as a cashier. And then I took a job at a juice bar. And after that, I started taking acting classes because I wanted to be an actor and do filmmaking. And somebody said, you should go get a job at Public Storage because they have an on-site storage, on-site apartment for people that work at the storage facility. So Linda and I, we did that. I did it for 13 years. Linda did it for 10 years until the company started taking off, because it took a long time. We would beta test all these digital platforms, but if no one's using the digital platforms, you're not going to make any money. Right. And it took a long time. We most of them went out of business. I think Google Play first tested it out with YouTube, a secret place on their platform where you could pay for a film. Amazon, they were using, I can't remember what it was called, but they were using another platform before Amazon. I think they bought it. And we beta tested that. And whenever Amazon would say, hey, you want to try out this or that, we would do it for them. And then Amazon bought that company. I can't remember what it was, but they had this, they had a phone that you could play videos, and they used our poster. It was called Shifted. It's a no budget film. It's not even worth watching, but they used our picture for the poster that they put on the phone thing. So, but that took forever it's only been maybe 6 years that we've been making money with the company, and we've had the company for maybe 13 years. So it's taken a long time. So
now, did I hear you correctly? I'm sorry, George. No. Did I hear you correctly in saying that filmmakers you've dealt with have had bigger films in the past, and did they bring those films to you once their distribution deals were done and you re-released them?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And that's awesome because the filmmaker already has had the film out, and they're not as precious. And I think that's one thing that all filmmakers need to know is once first-time filmmakers, they're always extremely precious with their film. But at a certain point, you've got to put it out there into the world and see what, the market's going to decide what your film is, if it's going to be successful or not, then you're going to make a lot of money on it. But we've had filmmakers who've had a film like with MGM or something like that back in the late 90s, where people could make pretty good money if they sold their rights to a company like that. And then they get their rights back, and we put it out as a catalog film.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. It's your show. Yeah. I didn't mean to jump in, David. I just had I was loving listening to Michael, and he brought up some questions in my mind, so I just chimed in. So
no, go ahead if you have a question.
Actually, so I have three questions really. You had mentioned earlier, you sounded like you said something about the best thing is to figure out which genres are marketable for your film. And then you were kind of talking about sort of like niche marketing and niche films, because you were talking about documentaries about this, films about that. So what genres and niches are the best for indie folks that are out there making movies for $500,000?
Okay, yeah.
And like, what's a good genre or a good niche for filmmakers to focus on?
Yeah, I would say make films right now under $500,000. If you can do it around 100 million, that'd be great. I mean, 100,000. I'm sorry, not $500,000 or 100,000. Films that are doing well right now, documentary wise, anything that's food documentaries do very well. We have a film called Fat Fiction that does very well. So anything with health and food. I mean, food stuff just does well. Sci-fi documentaries. We have some sci-fi documentaries about maybe alien abduction. Those do very well. Films about crime. Black cinema does very well, extremely well for us. That's one of our top films is Black cinema. We have a baseball film. So, it's a film called 12, and it's for kids. And it's, he did all of his marketing is based around Little League baseball or people that play baseball. And what happens is when we put it out, all the parents bought this film for their kids. We put it out last year when baseball season started, and they all buy it. And he just 100% went every single day marketing that film. And also the filmmakers need to market every single day. One thing that we always tell our filmmakers is have an Instagram account that is for you as a filmmaker. Like if you're a producer, have a YouTube channel that's just for you as a producer or your production company. And then every single time you make a film, put that on that production company YouTube channel. That way you're building all those fans, and you don't have to go, if you make a new film, you don't have to find new fans for it. And YouTube do that. Instagram, if the filmmakers, I think this was his first film that he really started marketing. So he has a film called an Instagram page called 12. But I suggest the filmmaker have an Instagram page, and every single time they make a new film, they put it on the Instagram page, because you're going to just keep getting new followers, and it's just easier to market one place.
Sure. AVOD versus SVOD in terms of indie filmmakers. Do you prefer the Tubi and Pluti?
Well, they're totally different. People are going to watch. So, Tubi. You have what we try to do when a film first comes out is we put it on TVOD, and if like that movie 12, he had a following. He already had this huge following before the film came out too. So he built up his following by I'm not really sure what he did. He connected somehow with Little League organizations. He had this huge email list, and he also had his Instagram account. And then when the film was released, he could launch that marketing plan to all his people. So TVOD, that worked for that film. Most of the time, TVOD doesn't work for films because, most of the time people are going to sit down on their couch and they're just going to watch something that they have on AVOD. SVOD for free, like on Amazon Prime. People that pay for Amazon Prime will watch their stuff on there because you don't have any commercials. Now, if a person can't afford Amazon Prime or a subscription service, AVOD's great because, and I think that's where a lot of the platforms are going to be going. We have some films we got accepted to do IMDb TV, and I'm not really sure how it's going to all work yet because we haven't launched a film yet. But I think what they're on the platform yet. But I think what they want to do is they want to compete with the AVOD. I think it's an easier way for them to spend advertisers' dollars instead of having to spend money for subscription from Amazon. Also, I think the pay rate for Amazon's, they've lowered it so much. If a film's not super successful, we do have a lot of films that are successful that make, I think it's at 12 cents now. But sometimes they make 1 cent, and I think that a lot of the films will do better when it goes over to IMDb TV with advertising.
Yeah.
So I think that's the new, like it used to be a couple of years ago. Everybody wanted to be on iTunes, and then it went to Amazon, and now I think the new thing that you see so many platforms that are popping up. Peacock was one of them. I think they kind of got screwed around because of the coronavirus, kind of screwed up with the Olympics, and they've slowed their launch, but. All the new platforms that are coming out, Pluto TV, it's all AVOD. So,
yeah. And just one last question for you, and I'll dip out of here. First of all, I love the advice you're giving, and I love the split that you give: 80% to the filmmaker and 20% to you guys. And you've got a marketing plan that goes with that. Now, with that marketing plan, what is a general marketing cost that an indie filmmaker who signs with you for an 80-20 deal can anticipate? So say they spend $100,000 on a movie and they sign with you and they get 80% and you get 20%. Like, what are the additional marketing costs above and beyond that deal that they need to kind of think about and budget for before signing a deal?
So ideally you would spend nothing on marketing. You would have a built-in, like the 12, the movie, the baseball movie. He already has it all built in. What one of our filmmakers is doing is he's marketing. I think he's got 5 films with us. He's spending $3,000 a month, and he's marketing to films that are like his thriller crime film. So he's going around finding a studio type of films that are like his crime film. It's a black cinema film. So he's looking at those people. And then what he's doing with his ads, my understanding is that he is targeting those films. So then people that like that film will hopefully like his film and see his ads in their feed.
Very cool.
But it's he's spending $3,000. I don't. It's sometimes you can spend a lot of money on ads and you just waste all that money because per click, all that gets a little bit dicey.
Yeah, sure. Well, I appreciate you, David, letting me jump in, and Michael, I appreciate you answering my questions.
Yeah, George, nice to meet you.
Enjoy the rest of your interview.
All right, thank you.
Out of here.
I'll talk to you in a bit, George.
All right.
Yes, that's the great George C. Romero. You probably know his father, George Romero.
Yes.
And he's one of the grand poobahs of all independent filmmaking. So I was honored that he wanted to sit in on our interview and ask you some questions. It's funny that you brought up making films with specific audiences in mind. I made my first film, Mr. Hush, as a loving ode to the film Fright Night. I loved that film when I was a kid with Chris Sarandon and Roddy McDowall. And what I did is I casted Stephen Jeffries, who was the iconic Evil Ed in that movie. And then I marketed it towards the Fright Night crowd, which was the movie did for a small independent film. It sold over 70,000 units, which is actually kind of ridiculous. Yeah. Then I did a documentary film called Middle Village, which I knew would be very specific to an area. But Middle Village is a small town outside of New York City. And over the last 40 years, over 4 million people have either worked or lived in Middle Village. And I knew that if I made that film, it would be marketed to those 4 million people. So I think when you're on my new film, Wit's End has a specific market in mind too. So, I mean, I think when you're an independent filmmaker, one of the most important things to do before you even put pen to paper or before you start shooting is to identify what market you're ultimately going to work with, especially if you're going to go through, an aggregator. Is that a fair assessment?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
Yep.
Always.
Well, Mr. Madison, where can people find your company and how to reach you?
Sure. We have a website, IndieRights.com is the website. And if you have a film, you can submit it there. It's a distribution tab and just click on that and you'll read all about us. We have an Instagram page, Indie Rights Movies. And my page is The Michael Madison. So if you want to follow and check us out, it'd be great. Sweet.
I would love to actually give you a call tomorrow. So if you could IM me your phone number, I'd like to go over some things with you. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too.
I can tell all the filmmakers out there, and I know that tons watch this show, that I've heard nothing but the greatest stuff about your company. And all kidding aside, I don't blow smoke up. If I heard bad things, I wouldn't say anything. I've heard
it's usually Linda Nelson that does these interviews, so I appreciate you having me on. She talks a lot more than I do. So
no, you are incredibly knowledgeable, and it was great to have you on the show. And what you do for indie filmmakers to get their work out is very commendable. And from the indie filmmaking community, I thank you for that.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Yes, thank you everybody. Michael Madison from Indie Movies, Indie Pictures. I'm sorry, I always forget the name of the company. Indie Rights. My apology.
That's right.
Make sure you check out his company.
We'll see you next time.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Madison.
Thank you, guys.
See you. Wow. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Great information.
Oh, yeah. What I hear about his company, in all honesty, is that if they accept your indie film, he and his company will get it seen by the masses. So if you have something that you feel really good about, and you're and unbelievably fair at an 80-20 split, but what filmmakers have to understand, though, is that, let's say Mr. Madison sells your film to Amazon. Amazon gives Mr. Madison a 50-50 split of whatever the revenues are. And then Mr. Madison takes 20% out of that 50%. So it's never, there's complications to all of these type of things. But as far as being an aggregator, unbelievable reputation those guys have. And and they get your work seen. So
It's a beautiful.
that's that. Another one in the books, Mr. Ridgely. Episode 1 of season 2 for me.
Well, Mr. Schiaffo was there. I thought he was going to pop up.
Oh, is he still here?
Yeah.
Oh, put him on.
Are you kidding? He's always around.
I'm sorry, Uncle Scott.
Hey, how are you?
How's the noggin?
It's doing better. Healing up quickly.
Did you like
Great show. Wonderful stuff. You had somebody who's primarily in front of the camera and somebody who's behind the camera. It was good stuff. Lots of knowledge.
Yes, another good-looking Madison.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us going around.
I'm going to have to change my name soon.
So, Scott,
Yes.
how was everything in Jersey? How are you feeling? You look a little tired tonight.
I'm actually pretty. I think I might be overtired tonight. I'm a little wired on a lot of coffee today. But hey, no, I can't complain. We're starting to wind down here. I think this was a phase today of a lot of things opening. First time we saw mall traffic in the malls, it was a little weird and scary. A lot of people eating outside. We're not seeing a lot of masks. I don't know why that's wigging me out a little bit, but I don't know. This whole thing is a scary scenario. How about where you are?
We went. I had to drive through a small town called Stroudsburg to get to the theater today, and it was so surreal to sit in an entire 500-seat theater, just me and my wife, to sit down and watch Wit's End. It was like one of the coolest things ever, to just have like your own movie theater to watch a screening of the film. But it was pretty awesome.
That sounds really wonderful. I know you showed me.
I just hope on the night of the premiere it's just not me and my wife sitting there.
Well, I'll be there. That's for sure.
I know. That and Mr. O'Halloran will be there, so it'll be
Right.
exciting stuff. Joe Ridgely is going to come up from Florida.
You're suggesting, is he? No, really? No. Yes, no? No.
Unfortunately, if I could,
By the
I
way,
would.
Lance Madison, what a horrifying idea Mr. Wagner just put up.
Lance Madison.
And luckily there'll never be a Tiffany Madison.
Woo-hoo!
That's a concept.
Unless she marries Michael, of course.
So, any chance of you covering live from the premiere?
I don't know if I'm going to have Wi-Fi in the theater, but if I do, I certainly will.
Okay.
There's also going to be two or three other celebrities coming out to the premiere that night, so maybe we can do a live. I figure the screening is only going to be about 8 o'clock, so it'll be after the movie. So maybe we can just do. We could set up a table at the theater and do a show.
That'd be cool.
It's July 10th, so I'm not 100% sure yet.
What date is that? Is that a weekend?
It's a Friday night.
Okay. Sweet.
Are you going to drop the names of who you're talking about, or?
No.
Damn it, Dave.
It'll all be part of the big invite that goes out on Facebook.
Oh, great. Scott Meany, looking forward to Wit's End.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Meany. I hope you come out to the premiere.
Oh, yeah, he's local to you guys.
That would be nice.
At least, yeah, in New York. Right on.
Well, I think it's time to bring this lovely train wreck to an end. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's about that time for me. I'm going to lay down for a bit and meditate, I think.
I think sleep would probably be a good idea.
Yeah, that's my precursor to sleep.
Yeah, I get paid by the hour. Take it as long as you want.
Oh!
All right, what's
No
my...
way.
Joe, do you actually know what my sign-off line is?
I know you screwed it up more than once, so not offhand. No.
I don't
Be
even...
kind to
No, it's something like a man
no.
with friends is...
That's
whatever. I don't know. You think I would have written it down by now?
Are you really zoning out on your wisdom of friends and friends?
I think that I got it right maybe 3 times. How many shows did we do last season, Joe?
10?
10? I think I got it right maybe twice.
You may want to think of a new catchphrase.
Joe to make David nervous. That's funny.
You're making me nervous, Joe.
I try.
Hey, look at all that wonderful feedback. Thanks, everybody.
You know what? I can do this. I have this technology. It'll take me all of about 10 seconds.
No
to
man
find
is
out.
a failure who has friends.
Oh, there you go. Look how fast that was.
That's not from The Wonderful Life?
It's what Clarence writes to George.
Of course it is.
What is it? One more time, Joe?
Man, the pressure.
Don't-
I
wait,
can't
no-
stand the
no-
pressure.
wait,
no man is a failure who has friends.
Okay. You guys ready? You want to give me my one shot?
Oh, yeah.
You got to give me my one shot.
You're one
That
shot.
means just me.
Oh,
one shot.
so you want... Okay, so let's say, bring it in, Joe. Something.
No man is a failure who has friends. Good night, everybody.